I do want to add, I noticed that the title that's typically after staff updates, which is board updates, wasn't on this one. So if we could add that, just in case anyone has any.
Board updates, okay.
Updates?
I had something.
Uh-huh.
Was wondering if we could talk about the minutes. We could have an item to talk about that, and then about the budget,
Yeah.
and then about, James, about your update memo to the council. I don't know if that's too much to add, it'll be too much to cover, but.
Yeah, I think whenever we go over the consent agendas, if you have anything, any comments, additions, or corrections to the agenda when we're on 7.2 or 7.1, just let us know then. I'll give my update, and then if you have any questions, just let me know. And then regarding the budget, you did reach out. I think that might be good if I could recommend us do it right before the 4.3, just so we have a little bit of a introduction to the budget and then kind of into the discussion that we're gonna do. Does that sound all right?
Sure. Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, new business. Ponder Lane proposed subdivision.
Can you pull up the agenda, just so we can pull up the,
Sure.
the plans?
I'm pondering where Ponder Lane is.
That's over where the clear cut at Tickle Creek happened. Kind of near that.
Off of 211 towards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that's just right here south of this development, right here. So Ponder Lane is actually this street right here. So it's out of the city limits.
Mhm.
And right now it's kind of a wonky in the county. They can't decide who has jurisdiction over it, the city or the county.
Hold on, let me
she's
just, let me just get the,
the first exhibit under that agenda item. So she's gonna pull up this version just on your guys' screen so you can have that, as well as I'm gonna flip out these plans here.
okay, so is it the agenda packet? Or, okay, got it. Posted development, this thing?
Sorry, go.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
And if
okay.
you could just scroll down to the bottom one, because that
Okay.
will show the actual property aerial as well as,
Okay,
so just scroll up this a little bit.
let me scroll.
Cool.
Okay, does that help? Everybody see it?
Maybe zoom in just a little.
Okay.
You can also right click and turn it clockwise or
Yeah,
counterclockwise.
okay,
That way you can zoom in a little bit more so that you can see the
Oh, perfect.
that's,
parcels.
is that north? North is, okay.
Well, north is
will
to
be
the left.
which
Yeah,
is fine.
okay.
That works.
What? All right.
North is to the left.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
okay.
Yep.
So does
Oh, my
can't we
left.
just?
does everybody know where we are?
Why can't it be right side down?
Do you
So-
see at the top right of the screen?
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
That is gonna be where Bornstead Park is. Do you see those homes right there? It's
Just on the where the white is.
yeah.
So this is 211. That's the highway right there.
Is this the highway right here?
Yep, that's Highway 211.
Okay, and this here, you see my
Not-
mouse, is that?
That's not in this city limits, and it's
Boards?
not being developed.
So I think this guy, if you guys look
If you
up
go
here,
north.
it'll probably make it a lot easier.
Head north.
So this is Bornstead Park.
Mm-hmm.
This is Highway 211, how it curves down. We're gonna be right here. This is DeBarco Road. This is a neighborhood just south of DeBarco. And these are 5 parcels, pretty large parcels just south of this neighborhood.
It was just annexed in less than a year ago.
Yeah, so it is within the city limits. Does everyone kind of understand where we are now?
No, I'm still
Mhm.
lost.
Yeah,
Isn't that terrible?
Do you wanna look up at this guy real quick?
Kathleen, if you hop over to your Google Earth,
I gotta get north up here. There we
Okay.
go, okay. Now I see, okay, got it, okay.
That's
Does this help
Snowberry.
everybody? See, now here's 211, and this is Bornstead Road right here?
no,
correct?
that's not Bornstead. That's
Arletha.
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 That's Snowberry.
Oh,
there.
and this is the edge, you got it, okay. And then this over here,
is there's a gap, and then they're developing south of
is
it.
this Bornstead Park right here?
No, to the right of it.
To the right, okay.
Yeah,
to the
where
right.
the
This is
plane
the
is.
subdivision there, the
Snowberry.
last,
To
the
the
most
west
further
of the-
south one?
Yeah, Snowberry.
Furthest,
Furthest
right,
west
furthest,
one.
furthest west one, yeah. Okay, so now everybody knows where they are? In addition to me? Sorry. And this is all is this Rachel Court up here
Yeah.
to the north? Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa Avenue.
And Melissa, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Tickle Creek Trail.
And, oh, this parcel over here is what got clear cut.
Correct.
Yeah,
And Ponder Lane is right here, okay, right off at the junction, okay. 90, and how big is the whole parcel, 95 acres?
well, no, it's 23 acres. They're proposing 95 single-family lots,
Okay,
as well as some parkland area. So
Okay.
based upon the number of units, so 95, they'd be required to provide 1.23 acres, and that's exactly what they're showing on track B, which is right here or.
Sorry, Kathleen, when you did that, we can't see the.
I know, I'm just making some, on 23 acres, requires, I'm just getting these numbers, 1 point what,
2.3.
2.5?
2.3.
2.3 acres?
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
It's on that, it's on the
Okay,
front
all
page
right,
of the
got
agenda.
it, okay.
So they're proposing to meet the required land dedication. If they wanted to, or if we were even interested in entertaining them to do in fee lieu of, it would be $496,430. So $296,430, or 1.23 acres of a park.
Is
So
the acres delineated here on the, where they would put it?
It's-
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we lost it.
Hold on,
Yeah.
here we
can't
go.
see it.
Right here, track
Yep.
A and B.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so B would be their retention, their stormwater facility, and then track B would be the actual park that they're proposing just as of now. Of course, this is just a pre-application meeting, so they're coming in, kind of seeing how we as staff were reacting to it, and I said I was gonna bring it here to the board, because that's what we do.
Mhm.
And then you guys, I would kinda like to get your first opinions on these, and of course, if it comes in, again, we'll bring it back to you for like the formal, we'll be going to staff.
Can I ask a background question? In the past, how much money has been donated to the, if they don't set aside and they choose to put in the 100,000 or whatever it is, other past developers? Where is that money and how much
And
do
that's
we
true.
have?
We have over 700,000 right now. I was gonna go
Okay.
over that a little bit when we go over the budget, but that's a really great question to ask now.
Yeah,
I have a number right here on my sheet. Right now, in lieu fees, we have a total of I lied, 644,881.
okay.
Yeah, so we have quite a bit.
So
Would-
here's the kind of challenge is that, you know, this is kind of how it's come in all the time, you know, over the years, is that we kind of get these, what is it, not, you know, it's 23 acres. They're required to do, you know, 1.5, 2 acres, whatever. We end up with that much land. In Deer Point example, we got, I think, 1.6 acres last time, and then we plan for the adjacent property. So that's one thing to consider is what, you know, what's gonna develop, once this develops, what's gonna go to the west. And you can, you know, because the whole idea that we've all talked about and, you know, kind of agreed to was that having all these little mini parks isn't very efficient and effective, both for serving the public as a park and also from a cost efficiency to maintain it and all.
What's in our parks master plan right now? I know it's under revision, but are there standards that are set forth in that that
Mm-hmm.
say
Yeah.
we?
Show you that. For example,
The Parks Board has historically gone through kind of the city and done like little aerial maps and kind of looked at where proposed parks would go. And I think, and correct me wrong if I'm speaking incorrectly, Kathleen, based upon the board's findings, there was a community park, so 20 acres around in this general area.
yeah,
I was kind of thinking about.
so in the existing, in the Parks and Trails master plan,
The
or the,
proposed, where you guys are thinking, 'cause I don't think the
Okay.
existing 1997 one counted those areas.
So you have a little thing
I
you
do.
can click on there, it says proposed
Yep.
parks.
I'll show you both, okay?
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. Here is a map of the, oops, wait a minute. All right, so here is the map of the Parks Master Plan from 1997. Here's the Rachel Court one, and yes, you're right, James, that does show this is the, so we're right over here, and this, there is a community park in this area. Okay, so that's that information.
So that would be the one we're talking about right now?
That's the general area. These of course are all very conceptual,
Right.
but yeah, in the things. Then for proposed parks.
To give you an understanding, in 1997, that development wasn't even there.
Right.
DeBarco Road wasn't even there. I mean, it was very just a field, right? And so they put
Yeah.
a
Let's see
stake in the
this.
ground saying, in this area.
Okay.
So it's actually coming quite close.
So, yeah, there's, here in that exercise we did, here is the, proposed parks that we had. And again, this, we had one over here, and this, I think, is kind of the general, the purple are the community parks, and the one are the neighborhood parks. So we do have, we kind of copied that from the other one. So yes, in this general area, we do have a community park planned. And of course, that's, something more like, usually we shoot for 10 acres. Huh?
Yeah, something larger, kind of like 9
Yeah.
acres.
Yeah,
A little bit more
10 to
like
20
this,
acres
yeah.
is desirable.
So when these things come before us, what criteria do we use to say, no, you guys dedicate land, no, you guys dedicate money?
That's what I
How
was-
do we, on what basis should we be making that decision?
On the master plan,
Mhm.
based upon the master plan, yeah. So that's kind of why we're doing these exercises, is kind of see what you guys recommend for where our parks. So as of right now, when I'm looking at the 1997 plan, my understanding as staff is you guys have directed us in 97 to facilitate potentially getting a park in there. Now, times have definitely changed since 1997. Now, you can either kind of go with that 1997 and say, well, we want a park there, we're going to still kind of go for that. Or as you kind of seen stuff grow, maybe the park should go a little bit further out, because to the west of this spot is slated for residential, so single family. So maybe you think, oh, Bornstead's right there, so maybe we could push it out a little closer to where the 2 is currently on that map, versus putting in a pocket park here. So you kind of have to weigh those different.
Okay, so
balances.
theoretically then, if there's a community park planned for the area, then we might lean towards getting the money so we could have the
That
land.
would be a good strategy.
Okay, or if there wasn't a community park nearby, then we might want to go with the pocket park there, right? Is that the thinking?
Mhm.
Right, and I would say that, we don't have, we need more community parks. We have some large parks, Sandy River Park, but we can't develop it for ball fields. Mining Park, kind of ditto. Bornstead is kind of on the borderline between a neighborhood, it's only 5 acres, so it really doesn't meet the community park size. And so we don't have a community park, so that's kind of something that we really need to be pursuing, because what we heard in our surveys were ball fields and things like that, that we just, and for that, the other thing to consider is that you really kind of need flat ground, getting a bunch of forested, steep land that may be to the west of there, as you're looking at, kind of over here, I can imagine this is, I think Tickle Creek goes through part of this, or, I think this is kind of a valley, so that's something to kind of consider. Another thing to consider is just the value, with these conceptual park plans, you want to be in, so we want to buy land for a community park in the future. Well, you don't want to kind of announce that, we want to go buy this parcel over here, because then the
Right.
price is going to go,
Right.
and obviously government can only pay what it is appraised at. They can't just say the sky's the limit. So, so there's that, but still, the prices, that's why we bought Bornstead. Bornstead ended up costing us $1 million.
And
But-
that was, 20 years ago?
Yeah, but it was at the height, we overpaid, way overpaid for that, because subsequently those parcels went for, with the big recession then, where they couldn't hardly give
Sure,
the development was all stalled.
right, but you're guessing on the market, right?
So that's the thing to consider is, when you want to develop a community park, really trying to kind of figure out several options that might work, so you have a little competition. So
Are there,
that's something.
are there guidelines in the master plan that would say, give some guidance for when you should have a community park and when you should have a pocket park? And I'm assuming a pocket park is just a little neighborhood park, a little playground like in my community.
Mhm. Yeah,
Are there guidelines?
Yes. yes.
And then
Uh-huh.
how does this fall into those? Like
Well, what we found is that we have an
population or-
over and abundance of the pocket parks and underabundance of neighborhood and community parks. And you have to kind of look at it from, also from, you know, because we, like I said, we do have the big, couple of the big parks acreage-wise, but they're not really developed. So you can't, you know, we have 30-something acres of parkland total, but only 35 of those acres are developed. And so when you have to, you really do have to look at that. And then it comes down to how many, you know, we have a guideline for how many neighborhood parks we should have, how many pocket parks we should have, and how many community parks we should have on a per thousand basis.
And what we're short of is the developed community parks, not the larger parks and not the smaller parks.
Well, we're a little short on the neighborhood parks, not so much acreage-wise, but on developed acres-wise, if you just look at what's developed. For example, Knollwood Park is really a pocket park, because it's just that little playground, and then all that, you know, woods around it, which isn't really usable,
Green space.
green space. And so, you know, is that a neighborhood park? Not really, it's really a pocket park, because it's just got the playground. But acreage-wise, it's 6 acres, so it comes under the definition of a neighborhood park, but development-wise, it's a pocket park. So those are the kind of things that.
So would it be helpful to know how many of the, you know, what the guidance says, how many of each we should have, and then how many we really have right now?
Mhm.
And then we know kind of where we should go?
Right, and that's kind of the crux exactly of why we need to get on the stick with the Parks Master Plan, because we've kind of already done some of that, and that's, you know, where we're at with all that really should drive these decisions we're making tonight. But it's sort of like we're riding the bike and putting it together at the same time.
Right.
But I think one of the things that the Parks Board, it was before my time on council, when it comes around the Bornstead, that, you know, forget about what it costs to buy that, you know, $1 million, but the idea of the forethought of going after that when there was no development around it whatsoever, and I don't know whose idea, if it was, but Scott's or the Parks Board or Nancy or whomever, but because then it solidified that, and it didn't get developed for a long time. In fact, it's not even complete. But then everything built up around it, and the foresight of going, hey, it's all going to develop around it. Let's go ahead and buy it, because when it comes down to each development, and I saw this when I was on planning, we just want to give you this little piece of, you know, land that really isn't useful for us in building houses. So we're going to try to notch out this undevelopable piece, and so we have some guidance to but having these, like Nancy said, it's really become a burdensome on the maintenance of these little pocket parks. And pocket parks are great, but what I've seen with my own kids growing up is they outgrow them as they get older, and then there's nothing for that middle age. You know, the basketball courts, we got a couple of them, but bigger climbing walls or bigger facilities, and you just need more spaces. You know, when they're small, you want to keep them in a small space.
So the little parks tend to be the playgrounds that are good for the preschool kids.
Yeah, we call them
Yeah.
tot lots.
Top
lots,
lots,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's
And the other
a
thing is
park
that
in
the-
my neighborhood,
Neighborhood?
Timberline Rim.
Yeah, Timberline.
Rim or ridge?
Ridge.
Timberline,
I think.
Timberline Rim, yeah.
Yeah.
Rim is
No,
up,
not
but-
Timberline
Yeah.
Rim.
Timberline Rim's up by
Ridge.
Park.
Up on by
Timberline
Mount
Park
Hood.
is-
Oh.
No, Timberline Ridge, yeah.
Timberline Ridge.
Ridge, okay.
Off of DeBarco?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that, so
Yeah,
we
but
live in the same neighborhood.
There, oh, okay. So there are, I walk by the park and I often see different groups of kids there. There's the basketball court.
Right, because they have
and there's-
two.
There's people coming from different neighborhoods,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, across DeBarco to
Yeah,
play
that's
on
good,
the
yeah.
basketball court. And then there's little kids, it seems like every evening when the weather's nice, they're out
Oh,
there
yeah.
running around. So that's a very, you know, a big asset, I'm sure, to the people with children in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, we live across the street, and so our kids walk and play on that. As they get
Oh,
older,
okay.
the basketball court is what they're interested in.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of those for those kids in our whole city, as a city
Oh.
wide.
Well, the other thing that kind of happened was that the developers, there were some real progressive developers who wanted to have parks as part of their development, because they really know it helps sell the houses. And so they were very interested in just, you know, kind of creating the Hamilton Ridge, Barlow Ridge, Timberline, and Salmon Estates, and Cascadia were all developed with developers who wanted to park in the neighborhood, and that's how those got built. We accepted those and, you know, but it also helped, and, you know, like you said, it kind of helped sell the houses, it provided the resource, and, but, you know, one of the things we've also said over the years is that we really do need to be developing these, even if they are small parks, we need to have more than just a preschool tot lot playground structure. We need to be developing structures that can accommodate older kids, and like you said, sometimes that takes more ground.
Is the decision always 100% one way or the other, or can you split it and say you can put in a smaller park and we want X amount of money too?
We've done that.
You've done that, okay. I'm not saying we should
Yeah,
do
I
that,
can't-
just wondered if that's.
Trying to think, where did
Well,
we do that?
we can do
Oh,
we
we
can
I
do
don't know
that.
if we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
But I remember our last discussion, about the one Roll Tide over here next to Deer Point, because they had proposed a certain amount of park, but it didn't actually meet what they were supposed to. So one of the options was pay us that difference in lieu.
Yeah.
They could do that. They're proposing to, you know, dedicate all that they're supposed to.
Mhm.
If I could kind of backtrack just a little bit, thinking of strategy whenever looking at these type of developments that are in front of you, is maybe look at the 1997 Parks Master Plan, see what the definitions of each of the parks are and where we've kind of identified them,
That would be
and then
helpful.
compare it to what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of say, oh, well, we got these parks over here, but we have a lot of these smaller ones. Maybe this area does need a larger one.
Even though the master plan might be very outdated, it's still like what we've got for guidance right
Yeah.
now. So I
But-
think that
yeah,
seeing
and
what
then-
it said we should have, and then we could say what we have, and then here's,
Yeah. And
that would
then
help a lot.
That would also help identify, well, maybe this 1997, it's showing a community park here, that's definitely not appropriate, we need this kind of park. So that would be a recommendation for our new one moving forward. So that's why I kind of want to have us have these conversations, really dissect that, seeing what's happening, and then kind of how we could get in front of it. Kind of how, like how Kathleen's been talking about how they've done the different areas, you know, with the swashes, a quarter acre, or quarter mile, half a mile, to kind of figure out where we need the parks, which is what you guys have done in the past, which is I think what we're gonna kind of
Yeah,
go over
yeah.
in our third item. So those are really good strategies, as well as including the 2013 and then the 2018 different surveys. Because like Jeremy was saying, you know, the tot lots, people grow out of it. And as we noticed with the 2018, there was a lot of like 10-year-old kids. So in 3 years, they're gonna be teenagers and not gonna wanna do the same different things. So we also need to think about that and accommodate for those.
Mhm.
So me, when I'm looking at this, my first thought is, well, we have 95 lots going in, and then we have this neighborhood just to the north, and they're kind of bound by DeBarco, which is a pretty heavily used road before they could get to any parks. And then we have 211 right here before they can get to Bornstead. So my initial thought is, yeah, well, a park would seem like it would fit and help out these people, because then they don't have to cross what would be a large barrier. But at the same token, we have this park up here, Bornstead right over here, and it seems like we've identified a larger park. We need that. So maybe taking that into the fee. So it's kind of a different balancing act of pros and cons, and then kind of how you guys see that working all total. So really, you guys would advise us, and then we would kind of come up with our own conclusions, kind of like how I was talking internally. But then typically that decision would kind of be up to planning commission or city council. They're gonna obviously look at the city council goals to see what those are, as well as some of the same things that, you know, I was kind of just mentioning, the old plan, how things have changed, and, you know, some of the survey things. So it's really important right now, we're doing all those needs assessments, and you guys have done that with the different exercises you guys have done, and then moving forward, kind of solidifying those. Maybe in general, keep them a bit broad, that way we're not saying pocket park, neighborhood, community, but we'll need a park facility in this general area, and then when we have these conversations, we can kind of determine at that point. It's like, the last one was from 1997, so 20 years ago, things have changed a lot, so where we've identified a specific park, that might not be appropriate now, because people have, you know, the city's bought Bornstead, and then development moved over there, so it's kind of a fun puzzle if you will, one that you can never figure out quite the ending, but kind of have to ride the bike and build at the same time. But we need more than just one wheel on the bike right now, so we need to get that second one on.
So I have a question for you. On this proposed development headed towards the west, are they going up to the new, that way? Are they going up to the new city limits?
Yeah.
Because I believe that's the urban growth boundary as well. When we expanded the urban growth boundary and they annexed in, they went right up to it, so.
It's
Yeah.
the
We-
pink land.
Yeah,
See
we're
the
not gonna
pink line?
see we're not gonna see any development for the city on the west side of that pink line
Yeah.
until after the urban growth boundary gets
Oh, that's a good
re-advised
point.
again, which may be
Yeah.
another 20 years,
Yeah.
because we just did it last
Okay,
year.
so that's a really good point.
So that doesn't mean that the city couldn't go out and buy the land on the west side of it and do something with it. It just wouldn't be part of the city limit. Well, actually, in parks we can bring it in.
Okay.
But
And it would
I'm just
prob-
giving it
yeah.
a perspective, though, that
Yeah.
growth on that side of it isn't going to happen as far as houses until the urban growth boundary gets expanded again.
The land would be cheaper though.
The land would be definitely cheaper, and we've, as a council, had to go back, and I believe it's on the same ones, but was to look at land outside of the city limits, because one, it's cheaper,
Yeah.
that we would be going around. Not saying that that's something that's there, but that's one of the, for bigger parcels for soccer and baseball and, you know,
Mhm.
like, maybe what you'd find maybe like a mining park, but flat. I don't know, just a thought about this particular development.
Is it-
So it's
oh.
legitimate to think about siting a park outside the city limits to serve the city?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
And-
Sandy River Park was outside the city limits, and even the Cedar Ridge parcel, we just incorporated that into the city.
So
On
actually,
board-
we have
yeah.
ability to take parks and annex it in,
Was Bornstead
Without
outside?
changing.
Without being in the urban
without
growth
changing the
boundary.
urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
which is a unique thing, so.
Yeah, we can, and, yeah, we can
But nothing
expand
else.
the city limits and to, you know, they're usually amenable to that if it's parkland,
Yeah.
not if it's,
Do you have the urban reserve
yeah, uh-huh,
layer on?
yep.
So
Yeah.
typically, whenever we're looking at
So-
these master plans, we're gonna look at the whole urban reserve.
Yeah,
which-
yellow is urban reserve, pink is urban growth boundary, and blue is city limits currently.
So
Yeah.
whenever we go through and try to decide in general where parks should be, we're gonna look at all of the yellow area.
Okay.
So, because that's, you know, our service
Yeah.
area or our potential urban growth. That
So
won't happen.
theoretically, at some point in the future, the urban growth boundary could go out to the urban reserve boundary.
That will be a longer creep, yeah.
Yeah.
So next
Yep.
20 years, it won't jump that
It won't
far.
jump that far.
That will, all these boundaries will get tweaked, except city limits unless something happens.
So
He
what
didn't-
I have up here now is the existing parks and their service area, and most of these are kind of either pocket parks or Bornstead's a neighborhood park, but again, it's 5 acres, and so these all show you want to have a park within about a quarter mile. For a, you know, pocket and neighborhood parks should be, the target is about a quarter mile distance from where you're living. So we've got a little bit of overlap on some areas, but, and then you have to account, like James said, for major roads and things where even if it was within the quarter mile, that, you know, crossing 211 is gonna be a barrier, and crossing
We
into
don't wanna
Park.
send your kids out across.
Yeah, so,
So,
but we've kind of, this is the existing parks, and then we've got the same kind of circles for the proposed parks. And a community park is gonna have a much wider radius, you know, a lot of the, people are gonna be driving to it, and, you know, there's gonna be soccer fields and whatever
can you
there.
kind of put your cursor around and make a circle around this property?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Just to kind of show
Yeah,
that,
just do, right,
yeah.
It's-
So do you
it's,
see like the circles
right
don't
here.
overlap that?
right.
That's the reason why my first thought was, it's, if we put in 95 units, what park is serving these people?
Mhm.
Right.
But at the same time, the balance of, there's already so many smaller parks around it, should we think ahead a little bit more and potentially take the money to purchase land to eventually create a larger community park or something? But these are kind of things I want you guys to weigh and kind of give staff your opinions. This is just a pre-app, so it's obviously us just reacting to this. If and
Mhm.
whenever they come in again, they might take it out and, you know,
Do
we'll
you
have a
think
whole
we
different
could
thing.
get the information on, like, the definition of the 3 types of
Yeah.
parks
Yeah.
and how many we have now before we make a decision?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that, hold on, let me do this. The, I have the definitions and stuff,
Because one of the things that has always been something that has interested me is parks don't have to be
okay.
circular, a linear park, and we see these in other communities. And we've talked about it before at the Parks Board for several years. Redmond's a perfect example. They have a linear park as well. You know, sometimes you think of them as trails or
Trails.
linear parks too. So when we think about some of our parks we have, some of them can be linear too.
Well, look at Cascadia, you've got the top lot over there, and then you've got the bigger fields.
And then in between
Separate.
that,
Mhm.
things
And then the
have a
Greenway
smaller
corridor.
linear.
So here's the definition of community parks. You know, it's serving a larger area, 1 to 2 mile radius. And it's usually, what's the size? I wanna say it's usually 20 to 30 acres. Anyways, it's, there's a need for 2.6 per thousand people. This is from the 1997 master plan. Then the pocket parks, again, those are more, they're usually like 1/10 to 1/2 an acre in size. And you need 0.1 acre per 1,000 people. And then neighborhood parks are 2 to 7 acres. And I have all this written in the draft. I have it in another document too. I'll just go to that.
And I've shared the draft with you all, but maybe tomorrow or Friday, I'll just consolidate some of these, air quote, more important documents, I think.
So this proposed park would be a tot lot, basically, 1.23 acres. It doesn't even
Be
qualify
relatively
as a
small.
neighborhood park.
Yeah, mini parks, here's a summary in the draft. Mini parks are generally less than an acre, and they service less than quarter mile. They're mostly discouraged, and they address limited or unique recreational or open space needs. Neighborhood parks are 5 to 10 acres. They're 0.5 miles if uninterrupted by barriers of a service area. If, generally if they're 5 to 10 acres, but if they're, 5 or less, then you tend to kind of reduce that mileage of the radius. And then the community parks are 10 to 50 acres and typically 30 to 50, and they're gonna go from 1/2 to 3 mile of a radius. And you're calling for 5 to 8 acres. And so we do, that's kind of what we have. And I sent you all this today, but,
Okay.
we've kind of done that inventory of what do we have, what's the standard and all that.
And this is in the master plan?
The
Okay.
draft.
Seems like there's a classification missing. You got one that's less than an acre, and then you jump to 5 to 10 acres. Isn't there something in between?
1 to 5.
Yeah. Where's 1 to 5?
Neighborhood, yeah, pocket parks, it's called,
Yeah,
it
I
says
mean, that's
generally
less
less than
than
an
an
acre.
acre.
Generally less than an acre, but a pocket park, and that's, see, we can discuss that as part of our, categorizing, how do we wanna kinda categorize things going forward. Like I said, Knollwood is a 6-acre park. It was listed under the neighborhood parks, and then I started kinda messing around going, well, that's not really a neighborhood park, it's a pocket park, cause, but then, so we as a group, as we proceed, need to kind of help define, we've got some standard definitions, but we kind of have to apply them, make a recommendation for how we want to apply them here.
And this is kind of misleading too, because one of your larger parks is one of your smallest parks, John's Root Viewpoint.
Yeah,
You
but,
know,
of
But
course.
it's just over the hill. It
Yeah,
doesn't
right,
say.
good luck using that.
Totally
Different
inaccessible.
classifications as well, because you could potentially call that like a scenic park, because it's not an active use park.
Yeah.
So, it's very unique. That's why one of the things I talked about in the staff update at city council was potentially looking at the definitions to determine, what we want and what we see, as well as, state and national trends on those definitions. That way we can kind of keep in line with those, provide better expectations, but, we have our current plan, as well as all the efforts you guys have done previously with the draft that we currently have. So,
Yeah, and mini parks, they're also, like the VFW, it
Which
says.
is this one
it's
right here.
Limited or unique recreational or open space needs, so scenic, memorial, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
so. But yeah, so we're kind of off topic, and so
Yeah.
as, facility, I'll kind of, just mention that it sounds like we have a little bit of time. This is a pre-work. One of the things we might want to do as a group is kind of make a draft recommendation here tonight to James. And then, once we've had a chance to kind of, go over all the materials that we do have, make comparisons, understand the different things, maybe, have the option to, change it, say either go from, yes, we'd like to have, we're okay with the land dedication, or no, we want to take the cash tonight. And then, once we've kind of had a chance to kind of review all this, they're going to come back for another bite at the apple. I assume at some point they're going to come, with something more refined or whatever, round 2. And then, hopefully by then, we will have all had a little bit more time to kind of get an understanding of where we're at, where we want to go, what this means in context for all that.
I just am thinking that piece of property is not flat. It seems like it slopes from down towards 211, is that correct? I mean, the way it's laid out all square like that, it sort of looks like, oh, maybe it's flat, but I don't think that it's
I
flat.
don't think anything in Sandy is perfectly flat.
But I mean, I don't
I've been
know
there
what
before, and it.
But the difference between the north and the south ends of it, I would think would be quite a,
So this has some topographic numbers on it. So whenever I have my finger up here, this is just south of the homes that are currently there. I see 925, and then as I kind of go through here, we're at 915, so it drops about 10 feet.
oh, so it's
And
dropping
then
towards the
comes
west
back
then.
up about 10 feet back to 925.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's another 5 feet of incline, and then drops 10 feet, and another 10 feet. So it is a little bit hilly, kind of a variation of about 10 feet. Highs and
Oh,
lows.
okay.
10 feet's not too terrible, but I mean, it's not perfectly flat.
Yeah.
Well, is it this whole parcel?
So it was farmland out there. It
Which
was,
one is the-
I think,
Right.
raspberries or strawberries or
Right.
fields or whatever, and so. One of the reasons why the people came in and asked to be annexed in was because, they're just like, with the neighborhood next to it, we can't keep people out of our fields, and they can't like grow stuff and take it in with the people going in there because of all the, not salmonella, but some of the things that you get, they're just like, we're gonna retire and sell our land to be developed, so.
So if almost nothing in the area is flat.
I mean, I'm just
and there's
I'm generalizing
I
that.
understand,
That's
I
true,
understand,
though.
but- and there's a need for ball fields. We ought to be identifying land that could be ball fields and
I
then
agree.
trying to,
I agree with you. I,
My
It's
idea,
like-
because
vacation.
otherwise some builder is gonna wanna build
Yeah.
on the only potential ball field in the area, and then you're
Yeah.
done.
And this land is flatter than most.
Yeah, this is-
This land
hard.
is, yeah, this land is
judge.
flatter than most anything
That's
I
what-
can think
yeah,
of.
that's
I
what
mean,
I was
think of
gonna
Salmon Creek Estates.
Yeah, yeah,
With
that's
the
scary.
houses on stilts.
well, that's where you live, Salmon Creek Estates.
I used to live
Yeah.
across from there, yeah.
so tall.
We live
Oh, I'm
in a
sorry.
different, we live in a different.
Yeah, that's right.
And then-
Well, yeah, you're in the same boat though. You're still on the hill.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's we
So,
have
yeah,
we don't
and
have
that's
a
the
lot of
reason,
flat land. And,
we do need to kind of start scoping out community park land.
For this
Yeah.
particular pre-app, I guess my initial reaction would be that since we do not have a park that services this area, we need to. And so I guess that's my initial reaction would be that we need to take the land and put a tot lot on. As much as I have been saying we don't need more tot lots, but since it's gonna be families moving in here, like, that kinda sucks if they don't have a park, so.
Well, you also have undeveloped land to the west that you could marry that parcel to.
That's what I'm thinking too. Maybe in the future it will be a better, bigger thing, but for now.
Or could you split it, like you said, tot lot and then money for the rest, whatever would have been expected, I don't know.
Yeah, that can be recommended. That kind of brings in, then we have to put equipment on it, which SDCs could pay for, but then maintenance comes. So 10
Right.
years from now, that tot lot plus the 2 that we put in within the next 5 years are all going out. So that's capital, that's us asking the council for budget money, that comes out of maintenance, so it's, again, kind of that weighing thing. I would see, based upon just the conversation I've heard, is potentially not taking this land and trying to accommodate for a larger one. But my first initial thought was the same as yours, that, you know, looking at that map with the circles.
Yeah,
it
but looking at the
makes
map
sense.
with the circles, I would tend to
Yeah.
agree with Bethany.
Yeah.
But looking at the land outside the urban growth boundary to the west and that opportunity maybe
Yeah,
to site a community park
it's
there,
exciting, doesn't it?
I kind of lean the other way.
Yeah.
I cut, you know, I mean, assume, you know, let me just go ahead and draw a,
There's a pond.
You know,
I see a
it
pond
is-
to the left of it too.
where, let me see the,
Where?
where's the parcel? So it's not even, oh, that's interesting, it's not,
Where's the pond?
Right there on the
Um,
very edge of the screen there, the squares, those are
Okay.
ponds. See it right-
So what, is it the whole thing? It is, isn't it?
I'm not.
Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself. So here is kind of, basically a pond, the stormwater detention pond, and these are very, kind of, you know, and then, oh, the slope is that direction, gonna.
Yeah, it slopes down. It slopes to the
It's
west,
just
and you can see the pond
southwest.
right there at the
Yeah.
by Deming Road.
Oh.
There's two ponds, and so obviously in his map showed that too. It kind of came down the center of it and was there.
And then
But
here.
this land to the left of the pink line is sloped, I would say, from visually when I've seen it. So does it
Is-
show that too on your map?
No, it's just off.
Oh, just off, yeah. From when I've seen it visually, and it would correlate with that pond, but.
So is it about, let's see. Is, oh my gosh, it's pretty, okay. Well,
Are they trying to donate the lowland?
Pardon?
Are they trying to donate some lowland?
It doesn't. I don't.
It's not, it's relatively flat, I wouldn't.
Say that's where the
it's any
valley.
much lower.
I'd say that would be more of the valley would be from your page
Yeah,
there.
'cause this kind of
Kind of, yeah.
goes in.
I guess drainage would go there, and that's why they have the drainage collection
to
pond,
the east, yeah.
because that's part of it. Is because that's a natural valley,
Mhm.
which
So-
would make it easy for them to drain things.
yeah, this is about the parcel we're talking about, then right next to it is the, going to be a,
Detention. Stormwater.
it's stormwater detention, and so that becomes city ownership.
Wouldn't necessarily claim it.
Well, I mean, it's like Sandy Park, you know, Sandy River
Yeah.
Park. And, you know, like we talked about at Deer Point, that can be incorporated into it. Kind of where I'm standing is, I kind of like what you said, Bethany, is, you know, this, development of this is, like you said, way off in the future. And having this parcel, having a park here for now, because we don't have anything, with the opportunity to possibly marry that to the community park in the
Mhm.
future, is something that
Yeah.
might work.
Which is a really good strategy, just putting the park next to one you've already somewhat developed.
Right,
You just
And then
need to
you
make
have-
sure you flip flop that, or else you have a stormwater
Yeah.
detention in the
Right.
middle of it.
yeah,
I was wondering about that, yeah.
yeah, I would,
So the people just to the north of it would obviously that would become their park too.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then they don't have
'Cause
that
there's-
area to bark
Mhm.
up.
Road here,
Well, there's no other park near
Here's
it
the-
except for
There's that little
Knollwood.
yeah, see this
Yeah.
access point here?
Melissa
That would,
Street.
All those-
that would provide a park for Melissa and Rachel.
So being what's the size of the park over in Timberland Ridge? That
Hold on, I'll tell you.
I was just wanting to know comparison
Timberline
to
Ridge
this
is 0.87.
0.87. Okay, and so this one is a 1 acre.
One and a quarter.
1.23, is that what you
So
said?
so
Yeah.
it could be big enough to do what you did over at Timberland, where you
Mhm.
did have a basketball court
Mhm.
Yeah.
and a little tot lot.
Mhm.
And with Timberline, you also have some natural stuff because it was a forest
Yeah,
there.
it was kind of steeper.
But
yeah.
you wouldn't have that here because there's just plain field,
Mhm.
grass. So you would have the space to actually put a basketball. Have that junior high age maybe bracket or high school, you know,
Yeah, right.
for not just the 95 but the one above it, and make it more of a, instead of a tot lot, make it more of a whatever the next.
Intermediate.
We need that 1 to 5
Mhm.
term.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think we have $600,000, which I'm excited to hear because being on the Parks Board for so long and remembering having to try to keep paying off Bornstead before we could do anything with it. $1 million, and we're like, what development's coming into town? Because we want some more, like when Snowberry was being developed and trying to get the money off of the development from Snowberry, and so we could pay off that $1 million to do something else, right? Because we've always been in the deficit.
Now, there's
So-
different pots of money. There's the land acquisition pot, and that's what you're saying, about 700,000.
Is that in the, I mean, I know that's in the budget, I've been looking at it in 2 different spots. Which spot is that in? Is it,
So that's what I was just gonna say, there's land acquisition pot of money, and then there's the development of the parks.
Parks Capital
Is that-
Project Fund, is that where, is it in the Parks Capital Project Fund?
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking, I
You got
found the
something?
budget online.
Are there
so,
restrictions on the money we take in lieu of to be only to acquire land? We can't
Mhm.
use it for developing the park once you acquire it? Huh?
So that's the
Oh.
that's the development charge.
Yeah, but, okay, because
We
we were
have-
getting, maybe we're just taking money from permits and stuff when they were developing Snowberry, because we're taking that money to help pay off Bornstead as well.
That was the acquisition fund, you know,
That
the
was-
land, yeah. And we didn't
That's
acquire
not-
land, we just took money instead and used that for
Yeah,
the
yeah, 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 so-
acquisition, yeah.
Okay, so if you take money in lieu of land, that can only be used
To acquire
to
land.
acquire more land.
Yeah, and that's as it should be, because,
Yeah, I'm trying to learn the ABCs of what we're doing here.
Hey, I've done it for years, and that, I just got, just
Yeah.
30 seconds ago.
So I'm just trying to figure out where this money is.
Do you mind if I see?
What's that one? That's from the approved budget. I don't know.
Is that somewhere on a?
It looked like it was from the website.
Yeah, so a
Yeah,
lot
I-
of this stuff is gonna be coming from Public Works, so superintendent, parks utility worker, seasons, so that's, do you remember that, breakdown I gave you of the different responsibilities that had the colors?
Mhm.
And then I also gave, and I brought it here today to remind everyone of, it had like a fold out, and it had parks maintenance, parks capital, and then, park planning.
Right.
So all of this stuff is gonna be coming out of maintenance. So I have over here from, our accountant interior,
Oh.
I got what the revenues, expenses are for the parks planning, not necessarily the public works maintenance of it. So that's what I have. I have the numbers for what we budgeted for acquiring land, what we've gotten over the past 2 years, as well as the same for the SDCs.
So
it's
there's,
gonna kinda go over that.
so just to clarify, so the parks budget is in like maybe three different places?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's in the parks planning department, as well as the maintenance department and the capital project fund?
So it would be in the community recreation, public works, and then planning department. So public
It's
works
confusing.
public works is the one who would maintain it. So
And that would come
That's-
out of general fund.
yeah, and then public works, I don't manage their budget by any means, but they have specific categories within theirs as well. So they have some for paying the superintendent who goes out and knows the one. If and whenever something needs to get replaced, like a playground set, that would be public works capital, which means we would need to identify that and then beg and plead for our public works director to ask that for the budget. You would think I would go out and figure out how to get that, but that falls under a maintenance capital thing. So that's where kind of really understanding that three-prong
So
approach.
community recreation, public works, and then what was the last one?
Plan,
Plan.
yeah.
And
So
then we
the-
have
and the
this park
So the
capital
$600,000
project
that you identified, which of those, where is
That's the-
that?
That's
Planning.
mine, and planning.
So
It's
the
a
planning
plan.
folks do the
Okay.
SDCs, system development charges, and within that, there's the land acquisition pot and the SDC, new park development
Mm-hmm.
account.
So my role really is to get this plan off the ground, and then any ground up, I'm gonna do with the advisement of you guys. Once it's all up and running, that's whenever we really need to make sure that it's been maintained appropriately. So as we kind of, what I want us to do is, as you identify all the capital improvements you need, that's when we look at those and kind of figure out the recommendations from there. If we see a lot of things that are maintenance related, maybe a recommendation is look at our maintenance and operation, and then put some objectives under there. That way, we have the plan out there, the plan says we need to look at our maintenance and objections, so then you guys as a group kind of come up with policies. We talked about facilities inventory needs. That is something I do believe should fall under our public works or maintenance crew. And they do as well, but right now we just don't have that power or that manpower right now. But once we have those policies in place, maybe we say, you guys need to go out once a year, do that inventory, then we can look at our capital improvement list, prioritize and get those things done. So that's where it's kind of unique where it falls
Where
under
does the
state.
Parks Capital Project Fund fit in all this?
Which one is it?
Yeah.
It's in the annual budget as well, or the biennial budget?
So I'm gonna give it another couple minutes and then, because we've got a
Okay.
whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff to get through and.
Okay.
And I'll just remind you, while he's looking that up, is the money that we take in lieu of, or SDCs, that cannot be used for anything but that. It can't be used for the operations of a park, or the mowing of lawns on a park, or the superintendent of the
Or
park.
even repair of existing
Or even
parks.
repair of the existing,
Or
so if something you
replacement.
put in there and you now wanna replace it years later because it's worn out, you can't use that. It has to come out of, some other fund, general fund, or some other form, but it can't be used out of that. That can only be used for buying the new land or, development of a park to help with the, where it came out of the money for.
So,
Which is why we still have.
So just kinda, it's kind of a little bit of a tricky
Yeah.
game there, but if we can
So what I'm
remember
gonna-
those things, it
yeah,
helps out.
I'm gonna suggest that the budget is a huge topic, and we really need to kind of get a handle on that. I think we also need to have as part of the Parks Master Plan, one of the critical things for, how we decide what we want for parks is really an understanding of what's a sustainable maintenance budget for parks. And currently, it's also messed up by the fact that you put all your building facility stuff in with the parks, which totally muddies the waters. But this is a good topic that I think I'd like to kind of add this to the next meeting's agenda, because it's so complicated and it colors everything we have. So if I could
Yeah.
suggest that, would that be okay?
That'd be great.
That way, that gives us time for all of us to kind of get the thing in front of us. I don't have it in front of me, and then kind of, we can kind of go over and get a really clear understanding of what do we have and where, where is it going and all that. But you need a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we could.
You guys want to go around and give your recommendation and see if we have a consensus or not?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, right.
I can tell you all I
Bethany,
want,
I was
but
pointing to Bethany.
Yeah.
I think I think we should take the land on this one for now.
I agree, although I'm not 100%, but yeah,
Yeah.
at this point, I agree with her.
I'm iffier. I'm gonna disagree, just so that we're not unanimous. This is a draft. We can come back and look at it
Yeah.
again.
the developer won't know which way to go.
Yeah, well, that's.
You leave it up in the air so you can decide later.
So you want us to take the money?
I want us to take
All
the
the
money.
money.
I don't like the fact that there are complaints that all of these little parks are costing us too much money in maintenance. Yet, last meeting, we took the land, which was an acre and something. And this meeting, we're doing
Yeah.
what we say
Yeah.
we don't like the trend for, but we're not
Yeah.
changing the trend. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
Although last time,
Yeah.
it was adding on to an existing park parcel, so it wasn't just, remember
yeah,
that?
no,
But yeah,
okay. But-
understandable.
No, I
Definitely.
understand.
It's still small
but
by
I'm gonna
comparison.
vote the other way at this point.
I'm undecided, I don't know, I'm so fixated on that sloping hill. Just have
It's
trouble.
It's
And
really,
And I
nuts.
feel
It's
like.
pretty flat.
It's not too bad, and there are
but-
regulations on what land we can't
Yeah.
accept, so they would have to prove to us at that point,
Yeah.
whenever they come in for an actual application.
But it doesn't,
that
it wouldn't
it
make a good
meets criteria.
softball field, so
No, it
it
wouldn't.
would
Well, let's do a
be
little
something
drive-by.
else.
That's
No,
another
it's not
fun
big
thing
enough
to
be
do.
a-
Right.
Let's do a drive-by
Yeah.
here. Hold
Basketball
on.
court, maybe.
And so if somebody really
Pickleball.
wants, really wants a softball field, I mean, we need to take money and do something else, yeah, see that?
Here's
It's
the-
sort of-
Here's the
It looks
land.
pretty
It's
flat.
not
But
really.
it goes. it's-
Right down that
where's
driveway is
211?
Here's
the
Rachel Court, Rachel and
Ponder Lane, so
Melissa.
it's just
This-
north of that driveway down where those berry boxes are.
I think to grade 10 feet is probably.
Wow,
not
Google
too
drove
much
up the
of a-
price.
Not that big a deal.
I'm
Yeah.
very surprised.
Windshield
So-
surveys.
So that valley to
I
the
use this all the
right,
time.
the valley to the right is what is that low point.
This right
there.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
valley going
I mean,
down.
but here's like some little fruit collector things, so
Mhm.
it's, and you know, a bulldozer can take care of that, no, 10 feet is,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
And
So,
we're not
but,
trying to sway
but
this.
are,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
still not saying that this would make a good softball field?
It's not big enough.
It's not big enough for a softball.
The whole thing?
What we
Well,
have
I mean, if
now,
we just told them we want
The-
the whole thing.
the 1.25 acres.
Oh, you mean
right-
all
this right
that, not
here.
having houses?
If you know, if the city wants to have a softball field, they should just try to get a big enough chunk of it to do something like that. Because,
Do you mean to add on to the acre that they're giving us?
I don't know what I mean, really. I guess they'd have to just delete houses and say,
Oh.
we need softballers.
Yeah, I
Because Sandy is not the land of softball. It makes no sense if there's just hills everywhere, you know? So, I mean, if somebody's really fixated on softball, it seems like, you know, you have to grab it when it's sort of there. Although Bornstead
Mhm.
looked like it could have been out there in front.
So what do you think? What's your?
I don't know. I, you know, I don't
Take,
know.
take
just
the
in
money
terms
and
of
run, or final answer? No. Take the money or take the land?
This is a draft decision.
Yes,
Yeah, this is just a pre-application.
very preliminary.
Yeah, they haven't even submitted their
If
stuff.
can
whenever they
change your
submit
minds.
anything, we would
Mhm.
have all the information, exactly how much, if
Well,
the
I
land
suppose-
even is.
I suppose I like the idea of taking the money then.
Kathleen?
And my thing is, I think I would be okay with, I mean, a couple things. One is, you know, this over here hasn't developed yet. And so another component of that, you know, perhaps if this developed, then, you know, perhaps the park's over here and another parcel's over there. Y'all see where I'm
Mhm.
Yep.
moving my cursor around? You know, so perhaps we get, you know, 4 points, sort of like Deer Point, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that option there.
Mhm.
But I would say at this point, take the land. You know, over here, we have the potential for something over here, and we have potential over here. You know, so this parcel, whatever it is, whether it's here or here, we've kind of got options on both sides to make a bigger park.
Right.
Would,
So my recommendation is the money, or is the land, excuse me.
would you expand your recommendation to include potentially moving it to the east?
At this point, I'm not, you know, I'm not sure. It's, yeah, I don't have enough information, and I don't know what the deal, you know, if this is ever gonna develop, and
It's not in the city right now. So.
It's not in the city, but it's in the urban growth boundary.
It
That
is,
one
yeah.
So
is,
where the other side is
Yeah.
not.
right, so,
Sooner
mean-
that would come in than.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say yes on the dedication, land dedication. To actually say this is where we don't want the park, I'm not quite
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure we're there yet. For me, anyway, it might be more certain for other people.
Two, take them and run, three,
Take the land.
dedicate it. Okay.
So the money for maintenance, where does that come from?
Public Works.
Which it
It's
comes out of
just-
general
General.
fund.
General
Yeah.
fund, it's paid by the citizens.
Yeah, we'll-
We're
the
gonna learn all
very,
about that at the
very
next
little
meeting.
That comes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, because we're only got through agenda item 1 and it's 8:21.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm gonna be,
So we'll-
We can talk about it later if you want to
Yeah,
have some
that's a good
And
background.
then
budget
you and I can
question.
talk about these things,
Oh,
provide
yeah.
answers for these.
Okay.
That way you just have a little bit of a heads up for next time. And then I'll, ahead of time, obviously get a little bit more information for budget X, Y, Z, if someone wants to speak with us.
okay, there's another one, another development, right?
Yeah.
Well, these are the fun meetings when they have the developments. 'Cause
It isn't a development, but
This is phase M of,
track M. So up, we all, I'm sure, are aware of Left Park. There's the top lot, and then just to the left is the dog park. So the area outlined in red has been platted as a track M. There is a wetland within it. It's owned by the developer essentially, and they have contacted us and asked if we would like to take it with no consideration, i.e. for
Free.
free. therefore we would take on that responsibility.
Nothing's free.
Free.
For free, why do they want to get rid of it?
Okay, let me tell you the.
Because they can't build a house on it.
No, let me tell you the rest of the story. So they went in before they developed all this and clear cut this area, and there were some big honking trees there, and there's a lot of background on that. But anyway, when they cut a lot of that stuff, it all came back, of course, they did the development, and what didn't come, on this parcel, blackberries. And so they have spent a lot of money on blackberry eradication in that area, and they continue to do it. They did get a Clackamas Watershed Council.
They didn't. The city got it for them.
The city got, the city,
Helped
worked
them
with
get it.
Clackamas Watershed Council and,
Were blackberries like growing rapidly?
oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole is all.
Yeah.
They came in and with that grant help, help. Yeah.
Let's do a little,
So
Yeah.
what did the Watershed Council do?
So the Watershed Council went in and planted trees and eradicated blackberries to some extent. It's been
Been a few
somewhat
years.
successful. And, every summer there's still, let me just show you a little windshield survey here.
Well, it takes a while for trees to provide enough shade to shade out the
Right,
blackberry.
yeah. Here's the area we're talking about. So a
the
lot
top
of,
of the
that's all
blackberries.
blackberries in there.
Yes.
And not that there's
About 10
anything,
feet down.
I don't want to say there's anything wrong with that, but, yeah.
That was in 2011, it says.
This was 2011, so it looks a lot better now.
There's more houses.
Yeah, I can kind of show you today. Hold on. They did do, see, some of this is little blackberries, and I think this has all kind of been fixed up and
Tried to help.
yeah, replanted and all that. And I think this is the more wet area of the two. So,
So it could be kind of a wetland?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a
Yeah.
wetland.
Proper
Yeah.
wetland.
we also have an easement.
There's two pedestrian easements, you can kind of see on the.
Well, there's this, yeah.
The bridge, and
Yeah.
on the left, you can kind
Yeah.
of see the pathway.
Around the around the pond. You mean?
This
Right.
back here,
Oh, there?
right?
It just loops from one street
Yeah.
to the other.
Yeah.
It's still dead. Well, obviously, it's still dead ends down there.
Yeah,
Um,
and then the track wraps around that, so those roads wouldn't go through.
Yeah.
I'll show you there are some trails, there. Let's see, that's north. I have to sit and think, okay, that's northwest.
I guess the question is how has the developer been at keeping up that land? Because they're now sold all those lots, they're
Yeah.
no longer there, and we're not only no longer there, they haven't been there in 10 years.
Yeah.
And in looking at the next 10 years, do we see them
I've heard-
maintaining it, and what kind of stick do we have when they don't maintain it?
We have the ability to enforce, and from what I understand, there has been some issues in the past. Again, I'm not in public works, so I haven't had to.
Can you speak a little louder? I can't.
Yeah, from what I understand, in the past, there has been some issues with the maintenance regarding that.
Yeah.
If we take that on, we then take on the expense of that maintenance, which is definitely a
It's,
concern.
If we don't take it on, are they maintaining?
Yeah.
Do they have
They have
continual-
to.
They have
They
to.
have
What is
to,
our
yeah.
stick when they don't? Because
Enforcement, and then.
but what does the enforcement mean? Because they don't do it, we go and do it, now we have a bill, what do we do, lien the property?
Yeah. And then
I don't know, how do we-
taxes, I'm not sure.
Lien the property on some wetland that, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm curious what the stick is to keep them doing it. They've done it in the past because they've had lots to build.
Yeah.
They've had all this other stuff they wanna, there's that, so that's why I'm wondering,
And
is the
their
stick running
entity
out?
can get fined, and then at one point, it's $500 a day until the enforcement is remediated. I think it's first a warning, I think there's like 3 warnings, and then we have the ability, if they don't do it within a certain duration of time, to start billing $500 a day until it's completed. I don't think it's ever gotten to that point that I know of. My first initial thought was we would have to maintain that, and if we've already been stretched a little bit thin, do we want to do that, or do we want to just continue?
one of the things you could
Say, hey.
consider is, because, basically, yeah, they kind of just didn't ever pony up any money to do, well, I don't want to say, I don't know for sure what they did, but my perception is that they didn't deal with this, and so we kind of helped out linking them up with the Clackamas Watershed Council. Those guys did some, but they only had limited money and funds to throw at it. this is a fairly small, how many acres?
2.2.
2.2 acres of land. I guess for me, it can be mitigated with, they can go in there and cut the stuff, spray it, and plant it, and get it up to speed. I think I guess I would entertain that if they would be willing to invest the, amount of money to get it treated and planted, and then we could take it over, then that gives us the option of managing it. And, we could kind of come up with some costs, because, we've done, Kate Holleran that works with Metro deals with these parcels all the time. We've done it down in Sandy River Park, got rid of all the, most of the blackberries and planted trees and stuff. So we already have some costs on hand somewhere to throw at them. But I guess that would be my recommendation is, taking this on when it still hasn't been, when kind of a legacy problem. Then we, free, like I said, nothing's free. It's gonna cost us money. And it's not gonna cost comparatively speaking, how much money they have from developing all this stuff versus how much money we have. I would recommend that we say that we would take it on. And of course, then they don't have to pay taxes on it into the future, so there's more money in their pockets. So that would be my recommendation.
What's the benefit to the city of having it?
We have an extra 2.2 acres of.
But what is it, if it's wetland,
We can't
it's,
develop it.
we
Of
can't,
unusable land.
Yeah.
yeah, it's unusable land that we have to maintain.
Yes.
I mean, even if we get them to do to get it to a certain level, we're still gonna have maintenance
Well, I guess it
onward.
would just be that the neighborhood would look nice, our city would look nicer. I mean, because eventually, or even now, they may just decide to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And,
Look,
they
I
may
like,
even close
I like
down.
wetlands. I mean, I don't object to the city owning but can we afford to buy a wetland or even to accept a wetland that's gonna cost us money?
I think that goes with the nothing comes free.
Because it doesn't come out of, to maintain it doesn't come out of SDCs, it doesn't come out of that, it comes out of the general fund.
Yeah.
Well, and if it has been treated and planted adequately, based on our
Okay.
definitions of adequate, it should be a fairly self-sustaining thing. It's not like you gotta go out there and mow the grass or anything like that.
Okay.
And so, we have lots of open space in the city already, lots of it wetlands, that we already, we don't really maintain it.
Are the owners thinking along those lines, or are they thinking along, here, you take this, please, off our
Well, I'm
hands?
sure it's the
And you
second.
fix it up.
Yeah.
We know the developers.
Yeah.
But like you said, Kathleen, but if you did it, what Kathleen's saying, you could say, well, you do that first, and we'll bring this back up in 5 years from now, when those things have actually,
Yeah.
maybe, see how
Yeah.
they've maintained it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Like
you've
I said,
had other
it's a-
developers that have
yeah.
gone and done that,
Yeah.
but didn't do it adequately enough, and
Yeah.
all that stuff dies in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So-
I mean, they're paying taxes on it now, so they're, for the opportunity for us to take it over, it takes it off their tax rolls. And so there is some financial incentive for them to put a little money into it in the long run.
Or maybe another option is, out there you could think about is, we'll take it with money.
All right.
$100,000?
Mhm.
Hey, you don't get what you don't ask for, right? But if it comes out of general fund to be able to do this, and we're looking at supplementing budgets here and there, if you've said to maintain it, right now, we're not paying anything to maintain it. And you're saying that they have to maintain it, so why would?
We could come up with estimates of what it would cost to totally, get it fixed up.
But, I think your idea is having them bring it up to standard to where future maintenance might be pretty minimal.
And then bring it back.
And then we can, and
'Cause if they would've
when
done
they
that back then-
demonstrate that they've done that, and we're okay with it, then we take it.
If they would have done that
That's
back
it.
then, you would have had 15 years of it
Yeah.
being already growing up, and it would have been a
Yeah.
different looking.
So what Clackamas watershed people didn't take?
Well, I think like what
Yeah, they
Kathleen
were-
said, it
they
just
were
went in
also
there,
working
eradicated
Yeah.
it. That was kind of the
All
big
right, but if
thing.
they planted trees, it should have,
Well, they were
You have
also
to
working
constantly
all this whole area that's not the developed park, they were working all on this area too, around the pond.
Yeah.
So, how much time they actually
They
spent
were
on here.
focused on the pond.
Yeah.
They were really
They did
focused
a
on
lot
the
of stuff
pond
in
area.
here, and,
Okay.
they, only could do so much with what they had. so-
Yeah, I know. I used to be on Clackamas
Oh,
Watershed.
that's right, yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
chaired them in
yeah,
2010.
cool.
And I know that pond there, the people that live in that area really, it's kind of their gym. Even though it looks a little, a little,
And that wetland here?
yeah, well, that pond itself. Kids
Oh,
love
yeah.
running around it. You walk by it, you see a lake. Well,
Mhm.
and then we've talked in the past years ago that, you know, if development to the south were to happen, and
Yeah.
you know, could we fix that up a little bit and make it more, you know, a pathway around it, make it something that people could enjoy more. You
Well,
get people
I-
that fishing out of it.
I could go either way. I mean,
Oh.
Kathy's way means they bring it up to some standard. I'm sorry, Kathleen, bring it up to standard. Your way, if they give it to us with money, you know.
I'm not saying that's my way. I was just giving out another option. I have a
We
different.
don't have
That's
to
not
put-
my way.
We don't have to put labels.
But if they
on
wanna
it.
give 100 grand?
Someone has to
Yeah.
take
But
it.
$1 million.
either what I wouldn't go along with is if it's
Yeah.
not in good shape now, that
Right.
is taking it as is.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think it's, is that a consensus?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and so, you know,
So not as is.
no.
Yeah.
You know, you guys fix it up and propose it again. afterwards,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe given
Yeah.
a period of time of showing that you're dedicated to
Yeah.
doing
Yeah,
that.
and if there was, you know, if they wanted us to do all that, there'd have to be a considerable amount of money to be able to do that and ensure that it got done, and, because we'd contract that out.
That's to make sure everything's up to snuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't wanna do that, but they, you
Oh,
know,
they
but
don't
if
wanna
they
put
wanna
that
give
in.
us a considerable amount of money, and then we hire contractors to go in there and spray and plant,
Mhm.
and, you know, come back in another couple of years and do it again, then, you know, there'd have to be money set aside to do that.
Mhm.
And again, that gets it off the tax rolls for them, so
Yeah.
there should be some incentive there.
So complete the remediation of, is it the blue?
It's blackberries, it's just noxious weeds, you know, eradication of noxious weeds, planting of wetland species, and, you know, wetland
Not
and
just
others.
wetland species.
Appropriate species.
Yeah, appropriate species.
Yeah.
Because unless you
Reforestation.
plant something that's gonna shade it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna just go back to blackberries. and-
reforestation.
Well, yeah, where the blackberries are growing isn't wetland. Blackberries don't like wetland. Blackberries, not, I
Right.
mean, so you can plant
they like
trees with
anything,
them.
but, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it's like in Sandy River Park, that was all blackberries.
Yeah.
And now it's not.
Right.
You know, if you
So-
go.
Took the city a lot of work to get rid of, you know,
Yeah.
spraying
Yeah.
and grants from
Okay.
the Sandy River. That's where she
Can
was
you
at.
give nothing, information on that?
I'm going to write this out and then announce what I have written down.
Um,
Complete remediation of noxious weeds and plant appropriate plant species within the wetland to help ensure the success of future maintenance needs.
yeah, and long-term sustainability for, you know, low maintenance sustainability. Okay, so we did black. Okay, so then we added in here the budget thing, but we've just decided to add that to the next agenda item.
Okay.
So the next one is board discussion regarding existing findings.
Yeah, so this was where I was hoping you guys would start the discussion of what you guys have previously done as well as what you guys have observed throughout going to the different parks as well as looking at the 1997. I thought maybe today, and I know we're going kind of long today, maybe either running through that information that you currently have and deciding maybe a plan of attack for the future meeting, that way we can start documenting those
So
recommendations.
what is finding, what are you referring to when you say findings?
Findings, like
Yeah.
what it is you are potentially gonna recommend, or a CIP list, identifying different things that you wanna see improved.
So
Yes.
like a list?
Yeah.
But
List of
existing findings or
recommendations.
things that this board has done in the past?
Yeah, those are still valid and
If
where
they're-
you are.
yeah.
I was given the documents that, many of the documents I think you guys are gonna go over today, we've onboarded new people, I'm new here as well. I by no means wanna infer as to what you guys have done, so this will give me an opportunity to hear it
So-
firsthand from you guys, as well as you guys complete this recommendation.
You can't infer anything, you imply.
I would prefer not to.
So
You
then,
guys
so,
say.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the entire conversation,
Yeah.
but are you referring to to when we went around and looked at the parks, those recommendations, those would be the findings that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, my envision with this is you guys would probably identify different amenities you wanna see. And then, or different things you observed with maybe stuff was deferred maintenance XYZ. From there, we would kind of be able to create a CIP list from the board to the council. That way we have identified from the board, these are all the things we're wanting to see improved. Then with that information and our information from the city, we could have our council, approve a CIP list. That would be one of the 3 documents we're ultimately trying to do. Which one would be the Parks Master Plan, 2 would be the CIP list, 3 would be the methodology. From the CIP list, we would then be able to decide what our goals are. So what goals do we need to set for ourselves and objectives to get everything on the CIP list done? Now this is where the budget kind of plays in, which is why I believe you asked for it to be on here, because we only have a certain amount of money. But the CIP list obviously will cover everything with the budget we have now. That's what we really need to do, is prioritize. So get your priority list, we'll get ours, and the council will ultimately decide. That way, whenever we go through looking at the budget, we can see what has been prioritized and figure out those amounts and put those on our budgets. And that way, we kind of tick off the different objectives.
Okay, and CIP list in capital
Plan.
improvements, it doesn't refer to maintenance items.
Right.
It's
No.
just
Yeah.
big ticket stuff.
I foresee that some of the items you guys will identify will be maintenance issues. And
Mhm.
like I alluded to earlier, that could then create a goal of maintenance and operation. I know we have had questions about our development code, maintenance and operation. Obviously, to operate a park, we have to have good code. So that could be an objective under a goal of maintenance. So I see
Yeah.
the plans, our goals being a little bit more broad, was kind of a little bit more specific but general in nature objectives. That way, once we have this master plan up and going, we then can pick as a board what items you wanna look at and then kind of create those policies. That way we can take it back to council and say, in order to reach these goals and these objectives, these are the policies.
Well, we've also got the, where we're sitting right now is, we have the opportunity to do a workshop with the city council. And it's really helpful, and, the planning commission if they want to participate too. But it's really helpful to get everybody together, to get on the same page, and then just to have a good understanding of what's in the Parks Master Plan. And where where have we been, where are we now, and where do we need to go? And James really helpfully alluded to the fact that we've got, there's the master plan, and part of its role is to decide, where these future parks and trails might be. Another part of it is to determine, again, a sustainable budget that we need to know how much money we're gonna have for maintenance and operations. And then we also, the key thing with the CIP list is that the CIP list drives the SDCs and vice versa. You have to have, the CIP list is based, your system development charges are based on how much your CIP list is. And so, because we say, well, we want, in 30 years, we want to have all this, and it's gonna cost this much. So therefore, that's gonna cost, and say whatever that is only a percentage of that is for new development. I mean, it's kind of a complicated, but your population growth and these new developments, more people might use them, but a portion of that is for the new folks moving to town. And so that's what the system development charges, they're not gonna pay for everything, but they're gonna pay for a percentage. And so that's how the system development charges get allocated, is what is it you want in the future, what's your future population rate compared to your existing population, and the difference between those two can be attributed and funded by SDCs. And so you have to have the CIP list to know what is your future, what is it, So those are kind of very much interactive things. We are, and it gets all pretty complicated, and so what I've done is, and I can see how complicated it is, and everybody's at a different level as to what they've done. And so what I tried to do here was start with a kind of an overview PowerPoint that I just want to kind of flip through. That I think where I would like to see us go is that we've got the workshop planned, there's some updating that we need to do, but I'd like to kind of try to come up with a consensus presentation that we can make to the city council that identifies, you know, where we were, where are we now, and where are we going. And some of that is work that we've already done with those, you know, parks and trail things and all. And some of it's just like, how did we get here with all the parks? So if it's okay with you guys, I would like to kind of, this PowerPoint is very much a work in progress. I've just started on it. I'm going to be adding to it, but it's hopefully kind of a good overview of answering those 3 questions. And I'd like to kind of just start going through that. And then I think at the next meeting, in addition to talking about the budget, we can kind of dive in on a more, there's, you know, quite a few documents. There's those maps that I sent out with the future proposed possible parks. And those are all very conceptual. I want to just go on the record for everybody here that those are just kind of draft, you know, wish list. They have, you know, they were based on some standard policies for, you know, both in our 97 plan and basic standard protocol. Everything's very draft. It's all very conceptual. Nothing's, you know, just because there's a dot on the map doesn't really mean anything. So, but there's 2 things that we should be looking at our next meeting, and that is diving more into those maps and how we got there. And also the second thing is we do have a draft CIP list that we did in 2017. And certainly, you know, that's a start. And we can kind of look more at that. I think I sent that to you out today. I sent you all a lot of stuff. And if I haven't sent that, I will send out that. But the future CIP list will include, you know, a lot of existing stuff, you know, like fixed mining or whatever. But it would also, of course, have kind of these just line item things of, you know, develop Ponder Lane Park or whatever, you know, and it'll just have some ballpark estimate. So our CIP stuff, some of it's going to be a lot more, you know, detailed, and some of it's just kind of very much, you know, a huge, just one number, you know, one guesstimate on a development of new parks.
But there is an existing list that's only a
Yes,
year
uh-huh.
old, so we
Yeah.
have something to start
Yes,
from.
yeah. So let me kind of get through this real quick.
Before we start,
Go ahead.
is it kind of clear what the CIP list's intention is? to
Yeah.
everybody?
It's a
Okay, so it's
it's
kinda like
very confusing,
Yeah, it's
but
like-
I think you did a great job.
You did, you explained it well.
But it's also something that, you know, we can use, the list can be funded by SDCs, grants, volunteer labor, general fund. It can be all, you know, the part that's SDCs has to, again, tie back to the SDCs, but it's our kind of our wish list, it's our Christmas list.
Yeah.
And
All right,
For
but
the
as I
next 30 years.
understand it, you've got a master plan. The CIP list is the list of what you need to build in order to make this plan.
yeah, it's actually, let me just clarify,
Manifest.
it's actually, the CIP list is generally just for 5 years. The Parks
Ah,
Master
okay.
Plan is for a longer period.
All right, see it.
And
Okay.
so, you know, you don't need to be,
So it's a
you know,
step
yeah.
towards.
So if we, you know, are building something in 20 years, we don't need to worry about that right now. It's generally 5 years. And what's
Okay.
happened over the past is that we did, as a Parks Board, review and amend the Parks CIP list every year to 2 years. And then that got added into the overall city budget that got adopted by the city council. So I think there's been confusion as to whether or not we've updated our CIP list, and we have over the years. Nancy has the, you know, spreadsheets from the past years, but I do remember, and there's city,
Yeah, we did that
Sandy
pretty
board,
often.
you know, board
Yeah.
meeting notes where we reviewed it and, you know,
So it's
added on
adopted
projects.
as part of the budget? Is that what you said?
What's that?
It's adopted as part of the
Yes,
city
uh-huh,
budget?
it's the, yeah. Just like, you know, the water treatment plant CIP projects, or the water, you know, water and sewer has a CIP list, every utility and department has CIP lists. Okay, all right, so, where have we been? Pre-1990, excuse me, okay. Okay, let me just do this. From the beginning, okay. Pre-1994, we had 4 parks, Mining, Tepper, Johnsford, and VFW, and I'm gonna talk really fast since we got 15 minutes or so, unless you guys wanna go later. But 1994, we did that community construct project, Fantasy Forest Playground. That was started by a bunch of volunteers. 4 moms got together, and what was the name? Do you remember the name of the company? I like to the brain slipped.
I've heard it, but I
tonight.
don't recall.
I know. Anyways, they go around and help communities do these community build playgrounds. They did, the one in Troutdale was also a community build. So that got done in 94. 95, we had the formation of the Sandy Parks Board. In 96, we completed community surveys and hired a Parks Master Plan consultant, North Pacific Design. In 97, North Pacific Design completes the Sandy Parks and Trails Master Plan in May of that year, and then we started implementation. The 1996 Park Survey results, and this is just a real brief overview, but basically these were the priorities that people wanted, was the hiking, jogging, bike trails, sports fields, natural areas, streamside access points, gardens, and picnic areas. Meinig was the most used. They encouraged us to renovate existing parks and then develop new parks, and their overall, it was auto-correcting onto Meinig, excuse me. It kept correcting Meinig to be meaning, so that's not what that means. I'll fix that later. Lack of maintenance and the need for restrooms by playgrounds was one of the frequent.
Oh, it
Yes.
still is.
Still the biggest thing here.
Deja vu all over again.
Parents with
Okay.
small kids.
All right, and so here's the map from the 1997 master plan with the starred red dots are the community parks, and the other ones are neighborhood parks, okay, and trail quarters. And of course, this was Tickle Creek here, and then we had plans for this Sandy River, and back then we even had that possible connection up towards the northeast end of town, and also trails kind of linking up over here towards that way. So. The CIP priorities from the 97 Parks Plan 5-year list at that time was Meinig Park improvements, Tickle Creek Trail, land acquisition for future parks, and Tupper Park improvements. And of course, like I said, that got updated regularly with input by us, and then appended city budgets was adopted by City Council. Okay. At that time in 97, we did the Parks Land Dedication Policy, and basically it was 4.3 acres per 1,000 population. It was either land, at that time it was land dedicated or fee paid in lieu. Back then it was actually system development charges and, okay, I'm thinking that this, as I recall, my understanding at this point, so this little part is draft, is that it was all combined together. Or maybe this was combined, it was basically, they had to pay us. I forget exactly what it was. Anyways, I have to look that up because it's been a long time since I investigated all that. Land dedicated or fee paid in lieu of land. It was the city's choice. Land had to be relatively flat and dry, so they couldn't give us wetlands and hillsides for parks. We approved the land. The Parks Board gave input, and the city approved the land dedication. So. It was all up to us as to whether or not we did land or fees. At that point, it was 0.043 acres per person unit, and so those were the assumptions for single family. It's average of 3 people, 2 people, and only a multi-family unit is 1.5 people per unit. So which is kind of goofy because they a lot of kids live in those. But anyway, that's what it is. That's what it was. So that's how you come up with your park land dedication, was based on that 0.0043 per unit, based on whatever they're going to build on the, that one thing we saw earlier. Those are all single family homes, so that would be, 3 units per home times 0.0043 per person, and that's what that's how they get that 1.23. Okay? The charges.
This is the same now.
Huh?
This is the same.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the system development charges have changed. And prior to 94, it was $470 per household, and I believe that reflected both acquisition and development at that time. But after the Parks Master Plan, did not set a system development fee. They did do the 0.0043 acres for dedication, but they didn't set, and that had to be adopted and stuff, but they didn't do the money. They that again you had to do your CIP list and then figure all that out. So in 98, they came up with a system development charge of $895 for a multifamily unit and $1,789 for a single family home. And if land was dedicated, that was reduced by the value of the land. In 2002, that got updated, and at some point in there, and I'm not sure the exact years, that's when they started they developed both park land dedication policy, fee in lieu of, and the system development charges. So those kind of got separated. And at that point, I believe the parkland dedication was, over the years, it's been increased, and in 2002, it was 1,037, and in single family, 2,075. Current, like let's see, current parks SDCs, I know the multifamily is 2519, I couldn't find where to look it up, so those are things we need to fill in. The other thing that happened was that the city council adopted a park trail, or a trail SDC, and that was adopted, I don't know, do you remember?
That seems like it was in the last 6,
Yeah.
7 years.
2000 or something, yeah.
It
So,
was
so
more recently.
yeah, so we've got the park SDC, we adopted a trail SDC, and we will fill in those details, but they're there. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, our park inventory by type, this is kind of what came up before too. We have, and this is something that we can kind of discuss as to what category you would put this in, but at this point, we have the mini parks, and those are basically less than an acre parks, and we have a total, the Johns Review Point kind of skews that total acres, that's why you have the developed acres over there, but we have about 4.5 developed acres, and,
That John's Road just needs to be moved somewhere
Yeah,
else.
but what-
It just really skews the number.
About 4.91, actually.
huh?
Of that 4.91.
Oh, it's all over the hill, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
so that's the thing, that's where we really do have to kind of, we could just basically kind of formally say the park is the park, and this is all open space, and then it gets counted towards a different category. So that's one thing we could decide to do.
It might help us in other ways as
Yeah.
well,
Okay, so neighborhood parks, again, Bornstead is the actual 5 acres. Cascadia Park, when you add the whole thing, the top lot is actually the top lot itself, but then there's additional land behind it that's not developed, and then the Cascadia lot. And I want to say the Cascadia Park is about 2 acres or so, maybe 1.5, anyway. Deer Point Park, again, none of it's developed, but it is 1.4 acres currently. Knollwood, again, most of that's forested Tickle Creek open space, but only 0.6 is developed. Sandy Bluff is the true 8 acres, but although that does include those kind of the wetlands and all that, around the pond. But that's kind of considered the whole thing. Tickle Creek is not developed yet. Tupper Park is 1.65 acres. So total neighborhood parks, we have about, 17.
Tickle Creek is down by the movie theater?
As the entrance to the Tickle Creek Trail on the west side,
Oh, yeah, that.
there's a big, you kind of walk past a big open space on your left,
Oh,
right behind those
nice,
homes,
yeah.
and it's a big field, and you can actually also access it kind of right by Bridge 2. So it's kind of between Bridge 2 and the
Right.
entrance
Yeah,
trail. Yeah.
So where's the one right next to the theater?
The townhome.
Oh, that is not,
It's a park,
It's
but
a park, it just hasn't been.
it's not developed.
it hasn't been
Then it
developed,
would be the same
Has
as
it-
it would be
and
at
it has been
Deer Point.
dedicated?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, see,
yeah.
at the time I was doing this, that hadn't happened yet,
Yeah.
because that all kind of
It's
just.
a new thing.
It's,
Okay.
yeah, it's
So
it's
I-
like Deer Point, it hasn't
Okay.
been developed.
All right, so I'm gonna add
But
that
it's
to it.
another little, I would call it a mini tot lot
Well,
park.
and see, the other thing that was confusing to me was that I know, apartments have to develop their own little playground structure,
Mhm.
but that's not this.
Multifamily, yeah, no, that.
No,
it's
that's not-
dedicated specifically.
Yeah.
All right,
And when that development went in, it was in, because that was all planned before 15,
Yeah, right.
16 years ago,
Yeah.
before I was even on the plan.
It's under different regulations.
yeah. So then you get to community parks, and we've got the new community campus, which I hope we would come up with a different name for that whole thing. Because campus implies like a, educational institution or something, but anyway. Community campus is 20.8 acres, now that does that include that additional park? I don't think that includes
That doesn't sound
Okay.
right. There's more land we brought
Yeah,
in.
well,
James
there's-
would know.
It was
'cause
almost
he-
40 acres. I'll look that up. Some of this was done, these tables were done like, more than a year ago, so.
Yeah, that-
Yeah, but, so I'll get that figured out. And then Mining Park was, the whole 11 acres, and Sandy River.
Mining Park, that you have, that all is being developed, but really it's only the front half, because there's a whole bunch
Right,
of forest
Right,
just
and I
like
can
Sandy
change
River.
that. Of course, that was also done when we were moving on the dog park and all that stuff, so we were
But
the
still, that
time.
would have only been a small section. There's that whole corner along Mining Avenue and everything that wouldn't have been part of that
Yeah.
undeveloped part.
Okay, so
So
we
is
can-
there more total acres or less developed acres?
There's less developed acres.
acres.
Yeah.
There's not as much
Yeah.
developed acres.
Well, like I said, we, at that time, we were looking at the dog park developing on that whole south end, so I'll edit that. And this is exactly what, I wanted to do, is to kind of, hey, that's wrong, or hey, this is, let's change this, or whatever. So that's the process. So total community parks, so total parks, shoot, we got like at least 166 acres. And of course, when everybody kind of complains about, well, we don't have enough money and maintenance and all that, but really, we only have 33, almost 34, maybe, need to amend the numbers with the latest park and stuff. But, we've only got about 34, 36 acres of actual developed parkland. And that's kind of what you want to compare to what is your population, how much do you, and that's where there's, in that stuff I sent you, there's how much is required per kind of park, per 1,000 population.
So how are we doing?
We're not there yet.
We're not there
We're,
yet. Okay.
we're, we're
You're gonna
talking,
get- but
we're
you're
talking
gonna-
about where have we been?
Okay. Okay.
So how did all this happen? So, I'm just gonna go through. Mining
Okay.
Park, we did the Fantasy Forest. After that, the project of the gazebo replacement. That was a design build project. Mining Park Master Plan, we hired Greenworks consultants to do that, and the funding used SDCs and general fund dollars. They replaced the bathrooms with ADA compliant ones, replaced the stage, actually built a much, huge amphitheater. That was all new. The parking lot was enlarged, constructed, and this huge drainage, you never knew, but the parking lot there has this huge drainage facility thing underneath it. Mining Park blueprints, that's where we had, Group McKenzie was the consultants on that. And we had money with grants, SDCs, and city staff and volunteers. And the plan for that was to reconstruct some of the trails with some relocation for those trails, park lighting, fenced dog park, and No Name Creek restoration, and child-friendly access points. We bid the entire project in the summer season. They came in very high. SDC funding at that point was being questioned. Project's not completed, and we returned the grant. So here's the pictures of some of that work. Then the Johns Road, that design was done by Greenworks Consultants, and the funding was an economic development grant, and the construction was done by a contractor. Sandy Bluff Park was land dedicated by the developers as part of that multi-phase project. Funding was STCs. It was initially banked and undeveloped, and then they came forward and said they wanted to use those 4 pods for storm drainage by the developer, and so we ended up having them based on approval from us, and they hired a landscape architect to design everything, and we approved the design, and then we kind of gave them back some of their SDCs to get that developed. The playground was installed, and the retaining wall, seating areas, and grass fields. Later in 2015, the city developed the dog park, and the funding, I believe, was SDCs and general fund dollars and a city staff match for water line and spigot. The Barlow Ridge, Hamilton, these are these ones that were all, landed, dedicated by developers, SDC offsets for them, and they hired consultants to design, have a landscape architect design, and then have another crew construct it as part of the development. Playground design was usually done by these folks called Burke, and later, I think it was Playtime initially, and then they moved to Burke. But anyways, playgrounds were done, again, designed by a separate person, a consultant. And then all of those were reviewed and approved by the city. Same thing with Timberline and Salmon Creek. Those all got done. Knollwood Park was originally owned by the Neighborhood Association, and it was a total death trap. All the facilities were, sharp, rusty edges, falling down. They kept, they were responsible for it, but it was badly needed replacement. So they wanted to kind of give it to the city. They had to go around and get everybody's signature, every person in the neighborhood. The funding, I wasn't sure exactly how that got funded, so we have to check with Nancy on that. And it was Burke Playtime Consultants, again, were the folks that helped.
I don't know where that funding came from,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I don't know.
You-
Nancy does.
Don't dig
So-
too deep.
And then Bornstead Park was a 5-acre parcel we bought with some of the SDCs that we had banked for land acquisition. And then there was also an interdepartment loan from the sewer or water fund that has been paid off in the meantime. And it was over $1 million for that park, so, for the land acquisition. The funding for development was Oregon State Department of Recreation lottery funds and SDCs used for the required match. The group, McKenzie was the design consultants on that Parks Master Plan, and the construction was done by a local vendor here, Paul Brothers, which is, I think, Boring Bark, associated somehow with Boring Bark. We got the community gardens, the splash pad, the playground, and that was all just phase 1. And we've got phase 2 calls for some other stuff. Okay, it's 9:02, so I'm just gonna run through the park. Sandy River Park, that was 124 acres that we purchased from the local landowner after the parcel was logged. It was kind of complicated, but, and I need to kind of go look in my notes, but it was there was state grant, it was also National Land Trust and some SDCs. Anytime I have asterisks in anything I do, that means go back and check it. Group McKenzie was the consultants, Parks Master Planning consultants, and the trails were designed by Recreation Trails, Inc., Jim Slagle. Construction, the Nature Conservancy went in and removed tons of blackberries and replanted trees, and they constructed the part of the trail that goes down to the river.
And the Watershed Council was always involved in that.
Not so, they did a few volunteer planting parties that I worked with, but mostly it was Nature Conservancy. Eagle Scouts constructed that entrance kiosk as a project, and SDCs paid for the equipment rentals, operator, signs, and Ant Farm trail crew and materials for the Jim Slagle Loop Trail. The volunteer project manager and Ant Farm volunteer labor matched the SDCs credited.
What about the community college study of the animals, flora and fauna in there?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true,
that was
that's,
in there.
yeah.
That was kind of neat.
It was. Tickle Creek was, part of the land was already owned by us. Additional easements were purchased with SDCs. Partially SDCs, some of it had to be general funds, because again, you can't totally offset SDCs. The funding, and then for construction, considerable volunteer labor, general fund, and SDCs. Again, Recreation Trails, Inc. was the designer for the trail. We had an MOU with the Forest Service to do bridge designs, and it got constructed with a volunteer project manager, yours truly, and city staff oversight, and subcontracted to on-call construction, local youth crew, and a volunteer trail crew leader. That's kind of, as far as I got. But the next kind of step on this is, where are we now with everything that we have? And then where do we want to go? And so what I'd like to do is, at our next meeting, have you guys have a chance to kind of go through the draft master plan, which mostly is existing conditions and kind of a lot more detail than I just gave in this. Go through that, look at those maps that we kind of had done, look at them yourself, and then at our December meeting, let's really get into looking at those maps and things like that. And then the budget, and then the CIP plan, okay? Does it?
January.
Sounds good.
January.
Oh, right, January's meeting, I'm sorry.
Would it,
I was like 2019.
just really quick, but would it be, what would you guys think about if we had a separate session to do this?
Yeah.
Just because there might be other business we want to talk about as well.
Well,
We don't have
can
that much
meet
time.
Earlier, by all means, if everyone kind of agrees to that and can schedule this,
Yeah.
of course.
What
I
do you
don't
mean
know
meet
what
earlier?
everyone else
Like,
thinks.
we
On
meet
the
at
same day?
7, but
Oh,
we could meet earlier.
As opposed to having a separate meeting?
Yeah,
Well,
or we
I
could-
don't, I don't know if I wanna meet 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather meet two-hour sessions
Mhm.
than
Separate time.
extend it,
Yeah.
After 2 hours.
Yeah, my
I
eyes
mean, there's
glazing
some
over.
young people who could probably go longer, but
40-minute
I'm not
drive
too.
home, so I understand.
Yeah.
Just an idea. I don't know what people's schedules are, if you could.
But we meet on Wednesday, my Wednesdays are open, so you wanna meet on on another Wednesday in
Yeah, I think
addition to
Wednesdays
this, that would
seem
be
like
fine
they
with
work.
me. I mean, we missed a
How
couple.
about I send out a survey monkey?
What?
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. a
Okay.
survey for,
Yeah, kind
so
of.
this would be meeting before the next January normal meeting date, which is,
Yeah.
Which is
I don't know
the
what the date
16th
is.
Or,
the
I mean, it could be after too, as long as we
Yeah.
just have a second meeting in January.
yeah. Well, it's kind of gonna be helpful to kind of start getting, digesting all this
Yeah.
stuff, because I didn't see it on the agenda, city agenda stuff. Do we have a date for the workshop?
No, I was
Okay.
gonna talk about that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that's kind of, yeah, maybe you're gonna send out a Survey Monkey to see if we wanna.
Okay,
With some different dates that might work.
Yeah.
good.
And what would our next normal date be? The third one?
third
Okay, that's the
Wednesday.
16th, January 16th. Well, that would be for sure, the 16th, and then maybe an additional one before or after.
Before would be good while it's all still
Yeah,
kind of
before.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think, yeah. We just can't wait
So
that
perhaps
long.
like in
We
the,
gotta-
after the first of the year, like
Yeah.
second week or something like,
Sure.
the first,
Yeah.
like the 6th or whatever.
Second Wednesday would be great.
The second Wednesday, like the 9th.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
have
we
a
can do
a
that.
park
Well,
workshop.
Yeah.
it's,
So-
January 2nd is the first Wednesday, January 9th, yeah.
So, I may not be here, I don't know. The councils every 2 years change up the roles on where we sit as on different committees, but
Oh.
that doesn't mean anything. I may or may not, but either if I'm not, it's fine. If I am, it's fine. Just to let you know, don't worry about my schedule as far as that goes. Or if I'm not, someone else will be hopefully attending. So, but anyway, just, but I do think this is wise, what you've done, thank you Kathleen, for bringing forward to the council on that day, because I think coming prepared
Mhm.
with the history and the background, and there'll be some people on the planning, if they're there, I
Mhm.
think they're being invited as well.
Well, and what I'd like to do is send
With-
it out beforehand for people to really kind of, it's a lot to digest and, I would probably,
Mhm.
but again, I think I want to have the opportunity for us to kind of
Mhm.
edit this as a group and.
I would
Make sure.
suggest, one of the things that you could do if you're gonna send that out is be able to send out like a definition, because there's acronyms in planning, there's acronyms at city council, there's
Yeah.
acronyms with inside the parks that we talk about, and there's newer planning commissioners, there's gonna be definitely newer people on the city council from a new city, the mayor, another counselor, there's another open spot, so that have no background whatsoever
Yeah.
in the acronyms. So maybe in whatever, look through your presentation what acronyms you have, and it might be nice to spell it out.
Yep.
I've seen it for so long that I catch all of them,
Yeah.
but sometimes I miss. But I'm unique on the council as being there the longest. But just
Yeah.
I think this is good becoming, and having it already prepped versus just coming in a room and let's just chat about it around the circle. 'Cause
Yeah, it is important for them to kind of understand, again, how do we get here and then where, because then when you start talking about new parks and all that, and they don't really have a good, they have no idea how we got where we are. It's
And I think
just
it's
really-
wise that you guys talk about the budget, and thank you for bringing it up, because I know we've ran out of time, and you may have a couple more things, but at the last city council meeting, I want to let you guys know that we did talk about parks and budgeting, and on a fee that we had a first reading for. We're going to come back with a second reading middle of January, so not the first meeting, on a fee that would propose a $2 to go towards parks maintenance.
Right, but see, what's kind of weird to me is that didn't ever come to the Parks Board. And then, what's it gonna be spent for? I just had a lot of questions, and on the one hand, I wanna be able to go there, all of us wanna be able to go there and say, yeah, let's do this, but, we don't have any idea how it all, and I
So I
get it,
got it
understand
on
all-
Friday before Monday.
I,
So I didn't know it was gonna be coming either, but that's what came in front of us, so.
Right.
Where did it come from?
City manager.
Oh,
Yeah.
so she just popped it out there, okay.
So it's for parks maintenance.
right,
Parks maintenance, but there's other things on it too,
things,
there's
police,
Right.
$4 for
Pools.
police, $3 for
$3
police.
for
pool,
police.
police,
Two for-
and parks.
$2 for
It's the triple
community
P,
center.
and
P,
$2
pools,
for
parks, and
parks.
So
police.
that came out on Friday, none of us knew about it before that date.
But it's just, the $2 is just parks maintenance?
Right.
Well, it's not
Well,
really
yeah.
clear
Three
that
for
it's park,
police and
yeah.
two for
That-
recreation.
It
Pool.
doesn't come with the strings that SDCs comes with, or those things. that
But
makes
you can
sense.
see how we wanna be
This is just
supportive of something
they
like
bill
that.
us
We don't wanna go to the city council
directly
meeting and
for.
start saying, well, what are we,
Right.
you know, and questioning, cause we wanna say, we wanna lock hands and all go, you know, this is what we want. We don't wanna appear to be,
I read about it
On it.
Friday afternoon, so,
You can-
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So anyway,
I heard about it once, so.
that-
Oh,
yeah.
so anyways, just to let you know, I think it's a good idea to have that when you come, as well as review the budget so you guys have an understanding and realize where it's coming from, because I think the council's also looking and wanting to know budget-wise, because we talked about it, how the council's heard a lot about budgets from the parks and not having enough money for keeping parks up. And you've talked about it, we brought it up tonight, so, and I think that will be part of the discussion as well.
But see,
so.
what I need, because I'm kind of a numbers person anyways, is I wanna know how much is you know, first of all, again, combining all that building facility maintenance, that should be lopped up into a separate spending category and not mixed in with parks, cause you just, you know, it muddies everything up. And I wanna know how much time and money are we spending for our existing parks maintenance right now? And then how much do we, you know, how much do we need in the future, both for, you know, currently and in the future if we do some more parks? How much is, you know, so for every acre of park we develop, it's going to cost another X amount for maintenance.
Well, we're gonna
And
talk
that, and then you
about
say,
budget
and
next
here's
one.
how
I
much
think it might
money
be
we're.
most appropriate to talk about it.
What's
in
that?
our next meeting. We're
Yeah, I
talking
think,
Right.
I think you're right,
But
bring
see,
that all
but
together.
if they're voting the second thing on January 22nd, that's why I'm
Right, yeah.
sitting here
Well-
talking.
No,
Because
okay.
I feel like, I don't wanna go to the 22nd meeting or whatever it is and say, and not support it, but for me, you know, but for me to really support it, I wanna know, how do we come up with that? Do we have an idea how much we're spending now, how much we need to be spending, and then the difference of, you know, how we arrived at $2, you know, hopefully, there should have been a whole lot more staff work done. But on the other hand, I wanna go there and say, yep, we would love to have $2 per whatever. So I'm torn, and I don't know how the other people feel about it, but they may want.
I don't know how all that came together either, so.
Oh, it's just
But,
the seat of the pants.
So,
It's just-
so I do know that what it was originally supposed to be, and this is, you can watch the video as well, and I brought it up
Right.
there, it was supposed to be $5, and all of it was supposed to go towards the pool. That was what was planned for from the beginning, to bring in about $250,000 to help maintain the pool. And then right before the last meeting, it got
It just
changed
went-
up, so.
So now so what is it now?
So we
being
had
proposed?
nothing to begin with, but now we have.
Yeah, Parks didn't have
$2.
anything.
How much
at
for
Police
all.
had nothing either.
How
Okay.
much for the
Three
pool?
would go to the,
And the
three would go to
citizens
police,
of
2 would
Sandy
go
had
to
more
community
bills.
center, and then 2 would go to parks.
Okay, so here's my thing.
So-
Y'all just spent like you moved $400,000, not even for a 2-year budget, to make the pool whole for a 2-year maintenance cycle, right? So, and then your current fees and stuff bring in like $80-something thousand. Okay, so you had $400,000 and $80,000, so that's $480,000. Now, is $2, whatever it is, gonna make you whole? Because for the future, I mean,
The original was supposed to be 5,
I know.
so
So you're gonna be short
So-
on the pool,
we will still.
because that $5 wasn't even gonna pay for the cost, we were still gonna be
It
in the
was
hole.
not, it was not, it was
So-
supposed to bring in about $250,000, and with about 50 to 80,000, maybe more, if depending on programs, would have brought in, you know, over maybe 350, but let's be conservative, 300,000, and the amount needed was about 350. I just bring this up because it was that was voted there to bring $2 in that fee structure that got changed up, $2 to parks, and however that was to be used, it was under the understanding it would be more towards parks maintenance because that's what, but that was our understanding. But that doesn't mean that that's what it's
My
dedicated to.
understanding was the opposite, but that's why.
See that?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's not
But that could be changed by any city council at any time, be changed in any other direction too.
But
so.
in any, you know, I mean, it should have
But-
been something that was well thought out, has data to back it up at where the
We did
need
have that
is.
data, and we had the stuff for the $5 for the pool.
Originally, yes,
But,
but now this, you know,
so,
And I don't think that that's really the topic right now. I think
Yeah.
it's getting kind of late,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
maybe if you want to explore that a little bit more, I could
okay, so
potentially get a
we're
little more
meeting
information.
before the second
Yeah,
reading?
but we'll talk about that
Okay.
and then maybe at
Good.
the end. I just think
not done yet.
Really quick, I'm
Yeah.
real new to the city government. Would, this is an assessment going to increase what we pay? Is there a vote by the people, or is it?
No, this
just-
is a utility fee,
Oh, it's
and so this would be on your same, this would be on your water sewer
water
bill.
bill.
So you have a stormwater fee of like $3, well, there would be this, fee as well of $7.
Okay,
So.
thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So regarding 1.3, at our next meeting, we wanna talk about the maps as well as benchmarks and stuff.
Budgets, maps, and CIP, existing CIP list. Anything else?
There were things that I wanted to talk about. Maybe we can talk about that next time as well, because we're run out of time.
Regarding,
Well, I wanted to talk about minutes.
okay,
And then just your update. I had some questions about the update that you made in the memo to the council, but maybe I can just talk to you personally, and we wouldn't have to.
I would say, go ahead and ask them now, because potentially, unless we all
I
wanna kind
just
of speak. or-
kind of conscious of everyone's time, but
No, no, I'm fine.
are you
We
guys-
started late, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
So essentially, I gave a update on the 3rd to city council. I sent that ahead of time as well as included on this meeting. Essentially, I just talked about the surveys we've done, the different work you guys have done in the past, the meetings we've had internally, the different kind of documents I've been looking at in order to proceed with the master planning, and then some of the next steps that I saw us doing, which we're kind of completing right now.
so, reading this, I think I mean, I know I've heard it before, but I think it finally solidified it for me, maybe. But the planning division is the one that's developing the Parks and Trails Master Plan. That's correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the
all right.
department I work for.
That's the department you work for, okay. And you talked about a parks programming plan, and I wasn't sure what that was.
That was
It
that.
was one of your handouts, and I think maybe it was this that you shared with us previously.
Yes.
Okay,
That breaks down the responsibilities based upon my department, the planning, public works, and then the community recreation.
okay. And the parks program, I'm gonna go back to the budget, sorry, it's in my nature, but it pays for part of each of these people's time out of the parks budget, I'm assuming, or we can talk about it later. Yeah, okay.
It's really uniquely how it was spread up, because to create my position, they moved money around, from one fund to another.
Uh-huh,
Um,
okay,
Yeah, it's a bit unique.
okay. Then you talked about in your second bullet, under number 1, that you recommended to us, this board, that we review existing codes, specifically the Parks Master Plan.
Mhm.
So what codes were you referring to? Is,
The 1997 Parks Master Plan that Kathleen.
so that's
over.
considered a code? I'm very new to,
Yeah, that's our
city
Parks
government.
Master Plan currently, that's been adopted, that we would adhere to.
That's considered a code,
Yeah.
like a
Well,
statute
it's
or?
a master plan, suggestions and recommendations, yeah.
Okay, is there any other codes we're supposed to be reviewing?
When I referred to that, I also was suggesting looking at different municipalities' parks master plans as well.
Okay, no, okay, because to me codes means, I'm from state government, so it means like statutes and rules, and those are laws and rules that we have to follow, so, but that's not what this means.
I
This
was
means-
referring to like the codes that kind of guide our recommendations.
Oh, the guidance.
Well, some things that come out of that master
Okay.
plan could sway a particular development code
Yeah.
to be changed. And I think maybe that's how I took it when I heard it, was that would help guide maybe some development codes that would need to be changed because it didn't meet the master plan to be able to do
Yeah,
that.
specifically, I think the big thing for us to look at right now, for everyone to be really familiar with, is the 1997 code. But as you can see with some of the other bullets, I'm also looking at the development code as well as the comp plan to make sure they all jive together. Because we don't want to like create something that then contradicts another code that we have. So it's kind of a matrix of looking at them all.
So I think I'm just getting hung up on the terminology. I think code
Yeah.
to you means something different than
Yeah.
maybe it does to me.
Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I know master plan and I know development code. And I know that the development code was written to kind of incorporate some of the master plan, but they're kind of different things.
Okay,
Um,
all right.
yeah.
Fair enough, so that might just be,
Just-
I'm just too into
I'm
it
just kind of getting
right
stuck
now.
on like
I'm just
code.
too
To
into
me,
it.
that's a law that you have to follow that, you know, or you're gonna get fined or something, so just,
Yeah,
but,
fair
all
enough.
right.
Be clear on that terminology.
And then you recommend the board's historic findings and recommendations. And I think maybe that's what we just went over tonight.
Yeah, and that we're gonna go over, you know, with the maps and everything, and the CIP
Alright.
stuff.
Okay, I think that was it, sorry. to take
And then,
everyone's
you did
time.
bring up minutes, though, we used to have meeting minutes.
They're there.
They're there.
Okay.
You have
So on the last page, and you
Yeah.
should do something with them
Yeah.
today.
So my,
And so-
real quick, my suggestion on the minutes was that instead of referring to yourself as staff, could you refer to yourself by your name, or is that a city, practice, not to refer to the person leading it by their name? Just because what if you leave and there's different staff?
Oh, I can put my name, it's just awkward writing that, it's like, I don't know, so.
Yeah.
I'll put James with that, make it clear. If I refer to staff in the future, that's just the city staff.
The city, other than
Because in many
yourself.
respects, you know, I take this back to staff and we collectively make the
Mm.
drainage. So it says staff, it's meaning like city representatives in general.
Uh-huh.
But if I specifically say anything, like, you know, staff presented X, I'm just name, I'll put my
Which is,
name.
okay, great, great.
Just so it's a bit more clear.
All right, and then I was wondering if we could review and approve the minutes first instead of last, because it seems like we always get so busy
Okay.
and we run out of time. I think that happened before, and we weren't able to
Yeah,
approve the
that's why we have
August
to.
minutes.
And you know,
I don't know if that's a city
I'm gonna do full
practice as
disclosure
well.
here. I don't think I've, you know, since I don't really go here to get my, I mean, I'm kind of spoiled that we used to just get an agenda sent to us email and I read through it. And then we'd come to the meeting and they would usually attach the meeting minutes from the last meeting and I'd read through them when I was reviewing the agenda. This whole new thing with this this new database thing here, I don't think I've ever, I honestly didn't realize that the meeting minutes were attached to that, so just want to make sure everybody else, maybe
Yeah.
there was other people as
So
silly as
Made
stupid.
that clear in past whenever I was going over them.
Yeah,
And scrolling
I
on
found them and printed them
computers
out.
Okay,
speaking and everything.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're going a little bit paperless now,
I-
that's the
Hard to
reason
get
for
used
this,
to.
yeah.
So, but, okay, so I'm like looking at the attachment, can you guys see what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
So there's 5 documents here.
Yeah.
Oh, one's in HTML and one's PDF, okay.
It's the same thing.
I recommend you don't try to open the HTML because you end up getting like, that's what, I have tried to do this, I think, and it wanted to make me prove myself or something like that. So, yeah, okay. So which ones do you want to review real quick?
Oh, I just wanted to make those comments about the minutes, just if we
Do-
could have them.
Should we
Approve
approve the minutes
first.
though?
Well, it sounds like you didn't even read them
I
because you
read
didn't know they
them.
were there.
No, right.
So maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to do
Okay,
it
should we do the meeting approval of minutes next?
Yeah.
Would that be okay? So we'll do that
At the
first.
first of
Yeah.
the meeting,
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
getting it there.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that.
Okay.
And then I do have one other little thing. I talked to a guy who was interested in the Parks Board, and his name was CJ or JC, CJ, I think. Did he send in an application?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because he
responded to a gentleman some time ago, never responded.
he
back.
emailed me and asked me for how to do it, and so I gave him a link to the thing and told him to talk to you.
If you could forward me that email, just
Okay,
reach out to
yeah,
him as
that'd be
well.
great. Okay.
The Barlow Trail, we're kinda, this is obviously the next thing. It started, at least they have the wood up to pour the cement for the toppers for that.
What are we talking about?
The Barlow Trails monument, the one that, like, the bricks on the top are gonna chipped away by potentially
Barlow
teenagers.
Trail?
At my house, that one.
Oh, Barlow Ridge, okay.
Oh, Barlow Ridge, so.
Okay, Barlow Ridge Park, got it, monument, okay. Sign,
Trail
entrance sign.
Yeah.
Oh, the yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
And then this sign, monument sign out here in the parking lot got erected as well, you'll see that.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Looks
It's
nice.
hard. It's hard when you count them in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Johns Road new curbs have not been completed yet.
Oh, wow.
They have, yeah, multiple emails back and forth. They have constructed the wood to have the sets for all the curbs. it's a matter of, because it's not a full load of cement, that's the issue with getting that here.
On a day warm enough to pour in
Yeah.
December.
So-
Hey, it's been really warm.
That we've left out.
6 a.m. was 45 degrees when I went running. It's
Wow.
warm.
So that's still coming out of my mind. But then we also added board updates after that. Sorry, I'm just kind of
No,
running
go for
through
it.
at this point. Does anybody have any additional board updates as of right now? Okay. I'll let you hear that.
No, the only thing I would really, and I think it was made, I mean, I got up and testified at that last meeting. It is really important to me that as a Parks Board member, out of respect for all of our efforts and time that we've spent before and I appreciate that you sent that out beforehand, but honestly, full disclosure, I read it like Sunday night, and Monday I was just kind of surprised by it. So it would really, for me, be helpful to, in anticipation, and I can also appreciate that you might have been asked at the last minute to present something, so it's not always out in your control. So, but when there's going to be a presentation made to the city council, that we have a little bit of notice, so that we have, and you gave us notice, but I mean, opportunity for us to kind of, come to a consensus on what it is that's going to get presented, and,
And to just be there to support you.
yeah,
That
right.
would be,
Yeah.
I would like to do
Yeah.
that. If you sent me something, I didn't see it, I must have spaced it. So, but I would like to be there,
Yeah,
if possible.
yeah.
Yes, I was asked kind of a last
Mhm.
minute thing, but I did, out of respect for y'all, send it ahead of time. I'm very confident.
Oh, I'm sure you
Yeah.
did. I probably
I'm gonna smack
just,
the keyboard a little too
Yeah.
loud,
just
but
went.
yeah.
oh,
And it was
yeah.
all like Thanksgiving, I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
holiday
Yeah.
season can get kind of crazy for
Yeah.
everybody.
but we had canceled our November meeting, which would have been a good opportunity to kind of
Right.
compile some of that stuff, and then, make sure that when it was presented, we all kind of felt like, yeah, this is, really represents where we're going and what we want to do. So, one of the things I heard you say that you liked the North Clackamas and the Hillsborough.
I like Happy Valley. and those-
Happy Valley doesn't necessarily have their own master plan, I don't
They
think.
do.
Okay, well, it was part of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, and they've divorced, in the last year.
There's a good word for you.
And there was quite a bit of alimony paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, and the Hillsborough one, I think, is what you mentioned before too, was, anyways, those folks, North Clackamas County, Parks and Rec and Hillsborough have huge park staff, planning and all that,
Yeah.
operations, administration, blah, blah, blah. And they all used planning consultants. I know Walker Macy did one of those, I don't know if it was North Clackamas or Hillsborough, but they both used, I can't remember who the other park, planning consultant was, but even with their large staff, they used park consultants. And that's kind of the reason behind why I was, and as you can see from all of our planning that we've done, we've always used design consultants, because they know what they're doing, they do a good job, they do it quickly, efficiently, effectively, and it's worth the money that we pay them to do that. So that was that was kind of the rationale behind what I was saying. Because and it's also a great opportunity for you to really get, totally, a huge amount of information and expertise to help bring you along more with more experience, and just a huge, really good opportunity, I think, to kind of help all of us, because we're all, anyway, that's and there's my.
Who was that?
Was that you and Mike?
That was back in the
Wow.
Stone Age.
What? No,
I
you
wanna see it.
gotta,
Put it back.
you gotta sit here until it goes to sleep again. That was too
Okay,
good.
I wanna see
You
that.
gotta
Okay.
email that. That's good. That's good
See it?
stuff.
Okay, hold on.
Mike.
That was back when.
Oh, wow.
How about you adjourn, and then you guys can continue, so I'll just cut off the sound and.
That would have been 99,
Wow, that's
maybe 98.
oh wow.